God, you drew that one out.
Was that a long bell?
That was a long bell.
Long bell go hard. We have a teaching episode this week from Professor Chris. I, Professor Adam, get to sit here and enjoy this as much as you guys do. There have been some teaching episodes in the past that he's done that I've had kind of some peripheral knowledge. Obviously, the last one, Game of Thrones, it was just hot fire, as all of them have been. Pretty outside my purview. Chris is doing something this week. I know the acronym ILM. He explained it to me. Don't know what it stands for. But basically, as far as I can understand it from what you said, this was kind of the creation engine that allowed George Lucas to do what George Lucas has done.
Yes. When it first started. Industrial Light and Magic. Oh. Which makes it sound even cooler.
Yes, it does.
So Lucas didn't put his name in it.
The M was getting me. I thought the L would be Lucas. Light makes sense. Industrial definitely makes sense. The M just wasn't coming, but Magic is the perfect M for this.
Yeah. So this was founded back in May 26, 1975, and ILM was founded by George Lucas, initially funded by George Lucas, basically as the vehicle to create on camera the visions that he had in his head for how he wanted Star Wars to look. This company goes on, and it's still in existence today, to basically create a murderer's row isn't even the right term for the movies that this company has created. If you look at their list, there's no chance that you haven't seen many, many, many movies where ILM is responsible for the special effects in the movie. And without having the ability to do special effects, you can present a studio with a script, and it could be an amazing script, but if it requires certain visual aspects in order to make it watchable for an audience to be drawn to it, if you don't have the ability to do those effects, the movie doesn't get made. You know, I don't know how many scripts sit on a shelf just waiting for technology to catch up to it. I think that was the whole point with...
I don't think that's really a thing anymore. Do you?
There still are things. I think the last one that was a good example was probably James Cameron with Avatar. He's still making this. I don't know why he's fucking still making Avatar
Didn't
movies.
the last one or the newest one just come out?
Yeah.
Have you ever seen an Avatar?
I've seen the first one.
Is it good?
I mean, visually, it's really cool.
Yeah.
And speaking of Avatar, ILM.
ILM, huh?
ILM.
Really? So Cameron needed ILM as well.
This is just basically the business that anybody who wants to have great special effects in their movie, this is who you go to. The only time you don't go to these guys, especially early on, is when they say, no, we don't have room to do this and you got to go elsewhere.
Is it weird to me? Because before we, obviously we're going to go a little bit here before we get started, not a whole long, but why have I not seen their logo on movies before? Where is it in the end credits?
Yeah.
Okay, because I figure ILM...
So when it scrolls down to the very bottom, and you see that weird logo that's like a kind of a weird pill shape, and it's got the 4 dots, and it's like, that's the Motion Picture of America. If you keep watching it, it'll give you stuff, and it'll say special effects by Industrial Light and Magic.
Okay.
But it also says that in the credits, but I mean, shit, how often are people sitting there be like, trying to read individual names?
Yeah, I feel like they need to throw it in the beginning.
If you watch a movie that has special effects in it, watching the credits is insane because anybody that had a part in the movie, so the special effects and like the programmers is just, it looks like you're reading it from an actual like page.
Damn. Yeah, I guess it's true.
All right. Well, before we get too far into it, remember guys, rate, review, subscribe. Hope you guys are enjoying the Patreon. This episode will come out after we've started the Patreon.
Hopefully.
No, I think it will. I think we're timed up. And now it has to. We're required to now put this one further back.
Yeah, okay.
Well, we also I got to space this out from Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
So.
True.
But again, before we get into it, if you subscribe, thank you. If you haven't yet, get on it. There's some good shit in there. You got anything before we start?
Teach me.
All right,
teach me, sir.
Let's find out how the magic happens. So again, Industrial Light and Magic, founded May 26, 1975, as a result of George Lucas wanting to make his first Star Wars movie, which is Star Wars 4: A New Hope.
Where did Lucas get the funding? Did he have backers?
Yeah. He had financing and everything. He had, I want to say, before Star Wars, he had made American Graffiti, because those are smaller, lower budget.
Yeah.
That's a movie about Americana. I think in like the 50s, and had hot rods in it and everything. And so he obviously had a little bit, not a ton of pull, but he probably had enough clout from that movie to get a meeting, present this crazy ass story about, because like the first drafts of Star Wars were pretty insane. I think it was originally called The Tales of Luke Starkiller, as written in the Journal of the Wills, The Star Wars.
Huh.
It was
wordy.
like because it was, it's a space opera. Yeah. Basically, I understand that it's still very, very wordy. So George Lucas gets funding to make this, and he's not going to have another opportunity to do this. So he wants to basically get his vision out for this movie as much as possible. The rub to that is the things that he's seeing in his head have never been done before. There have been space movies that have had special effects. I want to say Stanley Kubrick's movie that was about space. God, what was that called? I'll look it up.
The moon landing? Is that what you're talking about? The one they shot in the soundstage?
No, come on, Jesus, don't do that.
How weird would it be for somebody who George Lucas is pitching this to have him lay it all out for you, and then just have everybody in the room be like, well, this is different than American Graffiti.
Yeah.
That's what's been rolling around.
He just
in your
walks in
head.
with a dude in a Chewie costume, and he's like, "This is going to set the stone for the story, or set the tone." It's 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Okay,
is the one that Kubrick did, and then I want to say there may have been Close Encounters, but that may have been a little bit after, and that's Spielberg, I believe. So he needs somebody or a company that's able to produce the effects for these scenes in his movie. If he doesn't have the effects, the movie's not going to be made.
Yeah, there's no shortcut to doing Star Wars.
No, we look at special effects now, and we see the end result. So to us, everything just looks seamless. When you're watching an older movie and you see early iteration of special effects, your eye catches something, but there are still certain movies that were made a long time ago where the special effects like hold up. And of course, some of them have been like remastered, retouched up. But you watch a movie like Jurassic Park with the combination of animatronics and then CGI for farther away shots, but then combining those in together, it's hard in that movie to try to distinguish the difference. I'm also partial because that's my fucking favorite movie.
I was going to say, is it weird that I almost appreciate that and enjoy that more than what it has become? Like, now Jurassic Park sucks. I think we can all probably agree that it's outlived its lifetime. But for some reason, the dinosaurs, and maybe it's nostalgia of being a kid, I like those dinosaurs better in the first Jurassic Park than anything in the Jurassic World.
Yeah, but how much of that are you? Let's say that you just sat there and you watch them both on mute. The story of Jurassic Park is great. It was written, the book by Michael Crichton, which the book has some pretty badass shit in it that the movie doesn't. But you're seeing scripts go down too. Like visually speaking, think of it this way. Visually speaking, if you're just watching Jurassic World and you're seeing all of it, you're probably like, okay, visually this is pretty good. The complaints are like, the plot in this is kind of ridiculous.
Maybe that is to a certain extent, but there's obviously it's cool. The special effects are cool, but I don't know if the dinosaurs really hit the same. And maybe, like I say, it's because of the bias of being a child and seeing it and being like, that's what this is supposed to look like.
We're the first generation of people that saw what dinosaurs probably moved like for the most part. We saw the closest that anyone has ever seen to a dinosaur.
True. Yeah.
I think I was 11 when that came out, and that fucking just grabbed me.
Yeah.
Like I'd loved dinosaurs before that. So this movie was like, oh, we're gonna show you, like, where else could you see that? But again, we're getting ahead. We're already back. We're already in the 90s. So going back to 75, no special effects. There wasn't such a thing as a special effects house. So it's not like Lucas could be like, I'll contract out to this guy, I'll contract out to that guy. No one could do what he did. They had little studio effects that could kind of, like, studios would have their own effects houses, but they weren't going to pour all of these resources and tailor everything just to making George Lucas's movie.
They didn't understand the necessity for budgeting that stuff out, I'm assuming, because it really hadn't been critical to a lot of movies.
You had no clue what it would cost or what this cost to make or what it would look like and what it was worth. This is completely uncharted territory, which is why this topic is so fascinating to me.
Well, there's an interesting, like, physical mediums that already exist, a la an American Graffiti, when you can throw a muscle car on the screen and you can kind of rely on human interaction back and forth.
Yeah.
Whereas the juxtaposition of creating spaceship environments that look somewhat real is just
the other thing
out of this
too
world.
is when I was watching them create and how they had what they had to consider for certain special effects. We can look at a movie that takes place here, has cars like American Graffiti, and everything in that movie from a scale perspective makes sense to us because we have seen those things. We know how big the average person is. We've seen cars like that. We know how wide a road is. We know how fast what a car traveling that fast looks like.
Everybody's seeing a pack of cigarettes rolled up in somebody's sleeve.
Yeah, we could relate in our minds to scale and for familiarity. What he's trying to do is he had this obsession with wanting to create spectacle and speed and movement. Like, we talked about World War, we talked about Battle of Britain. There's footage from those battles where everything is so very kinetic. It's all moving. It's all quick. And you can sense that because planes are zooming by other planes. He wanted to be able to do that, but have dogfights in space.
Can't do that in real life.
Correct, because what are you going to do? You're either going to take a model of the thing. What are you going to do? Run it on a string and then just try to throw it in front of the string and have it pass by a camera? Then it's literally taking one shot past a camera. If you are then moving the camera and being like, oh, we'll shoot it down the line diagonally, you're still only getting one shot of that from that, fixed position. And then you can't stick something like they used to do in Flash Gordon where you have it on a stick.
Yeah.
And then you're moving. Exactly. Because it moves and it's jerky and everything. So that stuff isn't going to work.
Well, and as you just pointed out, to scale that to make it look like a believable shot or a semi-believable shot, it's just not possible.
Because there's nothing to reference it off of. So he kind of taps this guy named John Dykstra, or Lucas does. He finds this guy, John Dykstra. And this guy was kind of a jack of all trades. You had people that were like scene builders. You had people that were artists. You had people that were animators, that were stop motion claymation people. And, those people existed within Hollywood because if you think of like Clash, I don't know if it was Clash of the Titans or anything, but you always think of those old movies when they first made them that the like skeletons are fighting during the Odyssey and it's the weird, like the early special effects, or like a dinosaur would be stop motion clay.
Oh, yes.
And it would move all jerky in a movie.
Gumby.
Yeah, exactly. So through kind of just this weird shared network of a bunch of these people knowing each other or knowing people that did other things, John Dykstra is able to kind of bring in this team of model makers and, set designers, map painting designers to do backgrounds, stop motion animators, scenery, constructors. And he would, bring them together and he's like, okay, we're doing this movie. It's in space. We have these storyboards that have been written up by all these artists. They were doing the storyboards there at ILM. And also, George Lucas being a director, he sees things in his head that he wants. But, the documentary that I watched, any director that they're talking to, they're like, we have pictures, but we're not going to walk in there and show you like a fully fleshed out sketch. Some of us can maybe get something close, but we'll draw some shapes and be like, this is kind of how I want it. They have artists at these places who are just drawing different iterations of starships and robots and planets and locations. And then a director's coming by and is like, I like the curves of this one, but I like the, a line of this one. Let's go ahead and throw those together and draw me up a mock-up.
They're essentially building a new car.
Exactly. In more ways than one.
This feels very Ghost Army to me.
It is very Ghost Army. So you have these people that as they're going through, and Lucas is giving them parts of the movie to try to, work out. Again, special effects too is going to fall into like costume design. It's going to fall into like physical props, something showing as an action on the screen. They would run into situations where they'd be like, hey, I think, we're going to have to do it this way. We're going to have to do the shot this way. And then everyone would look around and be like, do we have anyone that does that? And some guy would just raise his hand and be like, I actually know a guy that works with that type of camera and that type of lighting. I could ask him. And they'd hire that guy. So they create this just weird misfit island or island of misfit toys of all these people that have had all these little niche things that have never been probably considered cool or mainstream or anything. And they're coming in and starting to develop these processes for creating special effects to go along with Lucas's vision.
So as far as Lucas having to check these people off, he's kind of left them he's left Dykstra to his own devices to kind of build this team.
Yep. So before Lucas goes and starts actually shooting, because he's going to be shooting over, I believe, like in Pinewood in England, or I think they shot in Tunisia for Tatooine during the first episode 4.
Did they give him like a proof of concept, or was this just all kind of a handshake deal?
No. So what do you mean proof of concept?
Like, we can produce things such as this. Is this more into your vision of how you want this shot?
About ILM to Lucas?
Yeah.
He didn't really have to have a deal. It was his company.
But I mean, okay, so I guess it is his company, but at the same time, you would think that he would want a little bit more security in knowing that these guys are up to the challenge.
He just felt that they could figure it out and that they could do it. And here's the thing. If he didn't get this movie made now, and there wasn't some form of group of people trying to create special effects, it would never get made.
Wow.
So he was hedging his bet that these people would be able to figure this thing out.
Okay.
So he's like, I wrote the script, I'll approve this stuff, I'll come in with ideas. So before he leaves to go shoot, he comes in, they storyboard out stuff, he picks a bunch of sketches, he finalizes designs for ships and things like that. And as he leaves, John Dykstra goes and he finds a warehouse in Van Nuys that's like by the Van Nuys airport that's in an industrial center. So they have garages and like a big work floor and everything. And like I said, he's bringing in photographers, model makers, set designer, artists. Most of these people aren't movie people either. They're making things for either their own just recreation or pleasure, or it's not something related to Hollywood.
Plays. Probably a lot of screen actors.
Drawing backgrounds for other things like just photo shoots, things like that. So
Broadway set designers, probably?
I mean, yeah, to a degree.
Because Broadway was definitely around.
I wonder if Broadway had that sense of like, I create Broadway backdrops. I'm not going to I'm not going to draw for movies.
This smut.
Yeah, there was some type of pretentiousness to it. So you're trying to figure out how to make special effects when special effects weren't really a thing. So they start out, just kind of giving you a heads up on, or kind of fast forwarding a little bit. They have the designs for these ships. So for the first year, while George Lucas is off shooting, and everything like that with the live actors and the sets and everything, they are going through all these things he approved, and they're just trying to work out how they're going to do it. They don't know how they're going to do it yet. They know they have like a 2.5 year time frame that they're able to use. The entire first year isn't about how do we, create the effects. It's how do we create the equipment that can help us create the effects.
While they're over there shooting, because they have weapons, they have lightsabers and shit like that when they're over shooting these first scenes. Did that come out of ILM too? Were those like just mock-ups that they had built, or was that all done in post?
So that's all, yeah, that's all done in post.
Okay.
As far as that, like the lasers and all that kind of
But
stuff.
as far as like the handles of the sabers
Yeah,
and the guns.
because in the first Star Wars, like the first three, it might not have been all three. They might have figured it out by the third one, but it was, I want to say it's called rotoscoping, and basically the lightsabers had a blade on it.
Yeah.
And I had it almost looked like a triangle, 3 sides, 3 facets, and it had reflective material. I think it spun. So when there was light applied to it from like back behind the camera,
Gotcha.
it would catch that. And when they would develop it, it would look like it was glowing because it was always reflecting light from all different angles, no matter how you moved it. That's why if you're watching the first one, it kind of looks a little jerky. Like if he moves it, it goes thin and then thick and thin.
And that's an ILM invention?
I'm not sure if they invented that specifically, but they probably had a hand in how to develop that. I think rotoscoping was also something that was known at the time. This application of having it be a laser sword is probably definitely a new thing.
Gotta be.
All right. So first they designed this camera that has basically a motion rig. So what they're going to do is instead of to get that kinetic feel of movement and of things moving through space and making movements through space, they're not going to move the prop through a space. They're going to design a camera that can simulate the motions and make it look like that. So an example would be there's scenes like in A New Hope when the X-Wings are attacking a Death Star and it looks like they're coming in straight and then they bank and swoop in away from the camera. They're not taking a model where the camera is fixed and bringing it in on a stick and then swooping it down to do that. The X-Wing is stationary, sitting there to where it doesn't move. It's not rattling, it's not shaking or anything. The camera rig is designed to basically move toward it and then be able to rotate up and over it in a motion. So it makes it look like when they play it back, it's doing a barrel roll or something.
So is it on like a gyroscope?
The camera, they have to design the camera to where it can move not just by hand, but where it can be programmed by the computers of the time to be able to mimic the exact same motions.
The fluidity of...
But to do the exact same motion and move the exact same distance because they need to have cohesive, consistent shots to be able to piece them together. So they developed one of them they called the Dykstra Flex, named after the John Dykstra, the guy that's kind of overseeing, that's the manager kind of ILM at this point. And
Priceless, you think? That camera?
I don't know if they ever viewed it like that because once they move to another location, they bring it with them to use. And then after that, it's just kind of a constant. George Lucas wasn't nostalgic in the terms of being married to methods of the past.
Yeah.
If something was better, whatever it was replacing, that died. It wasn't just like, well, this has been doing me well and everything. No, he was like, if this is better, we're doing that. We don't need to do this anymore.
That camera in and of itself just opened up a world of new potential in movies.
Yes. Here's a good example. So I know you haven't seen them a lot, but have you ever seen the original Star Wars: A New Hope?
Yeah.
You know the very first scene where it pans down and you see the planet, so you get a scope there in space. The smaller ship comes into scene, and then the the Star Destroyer comes into scene, and you're riding under the bottom of it, but you just are under it for like 15 seconds. Yeah. And it just keeps going. And so it gives you that scope of like, this is a big fucking ship. So George is telling them, this is the opening shot. This is what I want. And they're like, how are we going to make this? Like, this is an insane shot. It has to be a practical. Again, there's no computer effects. Like, we're not going to get to that until like the 90s. So everything is literally just sets and props and models and camera movement. So they're trying to figure this out. And one of the guys goes to Lucas. He's like, get one of the Death Stars, or fuck, why do I keep calling it Death Star? Get one of the Star Destroyers that we built. This thing was probably, I don't know, 3 feet long. So, I mean, some of these props and these models are big. And he tells them, get your model guys on here and go over the bottom of this and add as much detail as you possibly can. I'm going to position the camera to basically sit and hover a few centimeters off of this thing, and the camera, and we're going to flip it upside down. not the camera, but the Star Destroyer. And then I'm just going to come from front and I'm going to back the camera up. And when we play it, it's not going to look like the camera is coming back. It's going to look like the thing is moving forward. And you're going to see all of this detail and everything on this. So it's going to be a physical, like you're seeing this fly through space.
It's got to be a painfully slow shot, too, because you would need to speed it up to show just the proportionality and the size of the destroyer, too. Mm-hmm. So you got to just be inching that thing along just so slowly to try to convey how big the ship is.
Yeah. And so when it comes to also building these props, they're going off of proposed, or approved drawings. Then a lot of the time the drawing gets turned into a clay model where they can then, shave off areas or reshape things like that. And so they're clay casting a lot of these. And to build some of these ships, because there's nothing like them that exists. If you look at a TIE fighter, if you look at an X-Wing and everything.
There's no model to go off of.
Exactly. So what they would do is they would go to like hobby stores and they would just buy a ton of models of all types. They said a lot of them, they got pieces and parts because of like gears and like cones for like nose cones and everything. They would get a lot of stuff out of like World War II airplane and like cannon models, or like artillery models, tank models, things like that. And they would just put out all of these pieces from all these different models and be like, all right, let's start tearing off pieces, see what kind of fits together, see what looks cool. They call it model bashing or kit bashing.
It's Frankensteining models.
It's the same way they actually, remember in Batman Begins, the first one with Christian Bale, the Batmobile, it's that tumbler one that kind of looks all crazy. That was built the exact same way. The back of that is actually the nose cone off of like a P-51 fighter plane from a model. So a lot of stuff is designed through the use of this kit bashing.
So all in total with A New Hope, do you have how long it took to shoot? Because if you're developing this technology, there's going to be probably some deadlines that you have to hit to have this stuff. Like creating that model. How long does that take in order to be able to use it in a shot?
Yeah, I mean, and you not only have that one, you have models of the ship that it's chasing when you have to get a close-up shot of that.
Yeah, you're not just doing one, you have to do fleets.
Yeah, well, then it doesn't even have to be the same ship because they're going to develop ways within shooting this to make it look like there are so they have it scaled. Yeah. So you'll have, this will be the one for close-ups, but then we have 2 Star Destroyers that are a foot long. We have actually one that's 6 inches long, all of them to scale, that we then place them just behind it or up in the distance, and it just, the force perspective and everything changes. They have rebel ships, they have X-Wings, they have TIE fighters that they have the Millennium Falcon that they have to design, where one of the guys is just sitting there being like, I'm supposed to build this, like what? He wants a really, George wants a really unique ship. So he's going over and he's just picking up parts. And I think he was at home one day and he picked up a plate and he's like, what if I flipped the other plate on top? And he's like, well, I kind of got a flying saucer at this point. That's weird. But I can create movement with it I can put engines on one side so people know that it always moves in the direction the engines are pushing it. But then I'll just add some maybe like a little fork out the front of it so people know it has that forward movement. Even when it's sitting still, you know which way it goes. He's like, and what do we do with the cockpit? Well, a guy that had been designing the Millennium Falcon had gotten a design made, but it looked way different. It looked like and another space movie I think had come out while they were making Star Wars and had a ship kind of similar to it. And George was like, fuck, I can't use it now.
That sucks.
Because the Millennium Falcon's going to look too close. So he assigned this guy to design it. Well, the guy that built it initially was like, well, that sucks. You can't use my design. But the other guy that's building it is like, I have this nose piece. This is the cockpit window. Use this. And then use the satellite from this or something like that. And so he's putting it around. He's like, well, what if we offset it? Because like in a car, how people can understand it, you always sit off to one side. Yeah. He's like, so I'm going to put it on this side of it. But then because let's think of European cars, you go over to this side. So he put the cockpit just off to the side, and then he drew a bunch of models of different positions. It could be in the middle. And he's like, I bet George is going to pick this one. And that's the one he picked. So just even thinking of weird stuff like that of these designs.
That's so much time taken to just do all these different renderings.
They ended up calling the Millennium Falcon like the pork slider, the pork sandwich, because it looked like a like a loose meat pork sandwich, like on a bun that you just bit a bite out of. And that's why it had that little fork area at the beginning. Some of the ways that they would design, do you remember the end of the movie when they're fighting they're going through the trench and the Death Star and everything?
This is after it begins to implode?
No. So this is when the Death Star is, the space station is coming to blow up the planet. Luke gets in the X-Wing and him and the other rebel pilots.
Oh, yeah.
And it's doing the big dogfighting scene. So the way that was shot is they basically had this huge miniature built of the Death Star trench, and all the pieces on it were different. They had designed 6 rubber molded pieces, and they would just form cast them all by hand and then paint them gray and then line them up and alternate them in ways that were random, and then design little gun towers that would stick out and then have a trench that had all these crazy details that were built into it. And to make it feel like you were going down the trench, again, computers don't exist. It has to be something that you can shoot.
Yeah.
They would have a camera on a truck, and the model that they built was so long that they could lower a camera and have it pointing down kind of in the trench and then drive the truck to where it would then pull the camera through the trench. So then as they're using that again for different scenes, they can copy that. They can, reverse it so it has different movement to it. It looks like a different part of the trench. They're doing this during the daytime. They're doing this with little explosions. So they'll follow it in and then they'll have a little pyrotechnic at the end to signify either like a missile that was fired or a ship exploding.
Are there videos of this? Are there videos of how they shoot this?
Yes, that's it. It just looks like it's so low budget.
But it feels so interesting to see how these shots are done.
The crazy thing is when you look at how they did it, and then you go back and it's like, this is how we did it. And then they show you the shot, and your mind is trying to wrap yourself around, okay, remember, they showed me that the model didn't move. The camera went around, and then you see the shot, and there's no way you can convince your mind that the camera's moving. You're like, the ships are obviously moving.
Well, there's just no way that to see that shot and then to see how they do it. It's like, you didn't produce it that way. Mm-hmm. There's just no possible way that you drug a camera with a truck and you made this happen.
So they spend the first year, they have 2 years, and they have like $2 million. They spend the entire first year and half the budget building the models, building the camera, the rigs. Mm-hmm. They also are able to, some of these guys they bring in are guys that are just film nerds, are photography nerds, know how lenses work, know what happened if you cross film through different lenses or if you do this. They're building actual machines that can run film through them, adding layers to it that can then be used, like when they're flying through space. They have to take the X-Wing flying that they're filming and overlay it with the background of the Death Star behind it.
Yeah.
So they're developing ways in which they're having to integrate shots onto other pieces of film that they've already shot or that are like in the background.
And make it look seamless. When, again, it's never been done before. So George comes back after like a year of shooting, and him and Dykstra get into it because they know that he's coming back. They're like, we don't have anything to show him as far as a scene that's been put together. We've spent the entire, we can't show him the fruits of his labor. He's a year in, he shot everything, and now he's waiting to see how the special effects are going to be integrated. And we have 2 scenes to show him. They have one of the first kind of special effects scenes, not the one of the ship coming in, but I believe it is where R2-D2 and C-3PO get into the escape pod, and it's the shot from inside the ship where it launches out into space. So you see all these little, he's like, well, we need to show it to where, it would be like ice crystals would be flying out, and you can't put ice crystals in just using a computer. So he's like, what do we use? He's like, okay, well, I'll do like maybe some like dull glitter and some particulates. And then as I drop this thing out of this, I have the camera position pointing downward. I have the little escape pod prop underneath it. And then as I release this thing, I bet I could hit some compressed air in there to kind of blow it out, but then it'll scatter this like kind of glitterish stuff that I'm putting out here. And maybe that'll look like particulates, like ice crystals, like, cause it's been in space. So they filmed that shot. It looks really good. And it might've been the first shot
I want to say it wasn't the first one. It was something a little bit less impressive. So Lucas is pissed. He's like, "What have you guys been doing for the last year?" And he's like, "We've been building this shit."
No.
Like, it's not like we don't like. It's not like the equipment existed out there and we just had to go buy it and then figure out how to design the models. Like the way you want stuff to look and the way you're telling me you want it. You don't want slow moving ships that have been in every single movie. You want to see fast action. You want to see dogfights. You want to see like World War II, fighters going at each other. We have to figure out ways to make that happen. So Lucas is still pissed. Dykstra's like, listen, we've only spent half the money and half of it was to build all this. We know kind of what we're doing now. We have the tools to do it. Let us figure this thing out.
You didn't pay us $1 million to sit here and play hacky sack for a year, okay? We put some money to use.
He's still scared shitless because he's already spent he can't go back. He can't be like, well, we shot the movie and now we don't have a way to make the special effects.
Because like you said, the eggs are, Star Wars eggs are an ILM's basket.
Yeah.
Everything.
They went to this thing called VistaVision, which, do you remember the old Charlton Heston 10 Commandments? I know you probably never sat and watched it, but ever seen clips?
Oh, yeah.
It was the one where he like parted the Red Sea and all that kind of stuff. That thing that had like the weird clouds and made the like, it was this style in which it was shot. They were able to use those cameras, but then co-opt them to film certain things in space that looked like really, really well. So they end up getting the rest of the effects done. They use that next year, however long they have. They're able to do what they need to do. Lucas comes in. After a few months, he starts kind of seeing what's been put together, and he's like, okay, yeah, this is starting to look really good. And movie ends up coming out. It's a huge success. New Hope wins the Academy Award for Best Visual Effects. It wins a special like sound effect award because of, you got lasers, you got the hum of the lightsabers, you got space battles, you got the sound of the TIE fighters, the sound of the X-Wings.
How's this is what I was going to ask earlier. How do you make the sound for the lightsabers? What is that?
Okay, so from what I saw, I don't understand the principles of it, but I know how they were doing it. So he had a speaker sitting in front of him, like a big, think of your big, 70s style. It's a 3-foot speaker. And as it's sitting in front of it, he has a wand. I'm going to sneeze. Hang on. Sorry about that. He has a wand that I think is also emitting a frequency. And as he moves it close, like you would move a microphone close to a speaker, you get that. Except he's able to take that and have more control over it. So as he moves it closer to the speaker, we get.
Wow.
And what he's doing after figuring this sound out is in post-production, as he's going through and adding sound, he's watching the scene and watching the movement of Luke's
he's matching swings up with
and
noise.
He's doing the swings of the sound as Luke's moving it. Then he's doing that again, watching the scene, or not Luke, watching the scene of Vader and Kenobi when they fight. He's matching those as well. When they're trying to figure out the sound of how blasters are going to sound, they have really tightly bound. Basically, a guy goes out around the world or around nature, just on a walk through the city, wherever, has a recorder with him, and he's going up and he's listening for sounds. And he maybe has a handful of little things and he's banging them against something to see if it makes a certain sound. One of the sounds for the blasters is he has a little metal. It's not like a hammer, but it's some type of metal banging device. Yeah. And he's hitting it against a steel cable. And it's going, choo, 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 and it's making those sounds.
Probably pretty weird when he brings that rig in to to film the sounds for the guns, right? Or the blasters.
He's doing it out in nature. He's going out there and he might have found
and he's recording that and then he's just putting that sound into the clip.
Think of it this way. You have a power pole. And you know how sometimes it has those wires that come down and secure it to the ground? He's went up to one of those wires and it's just choof, choof, and he had a microphone and a cassette recorder, or not a cassette recorder, but a recorder on him in a case. And he would just hold the mic up and he would make that. And then he would go back and be like, how does this sound? How can we alter this? Does that sound good?
So he probably had 10 of those recordings of hitting that guide wire or whatever it was, and then just went back and...
I was hitting it 3 feet off the ground, 2 feet off the ground. That changes the pitch. Do we use this one for the Rebels? Do we use this one for ships? Do we use it for a handheld blaster?
Crazy job.
Yeah. Costume design. So do you remember I'm going to call back a lot to Star Wars, but hopefully it's the original one, so you have some memory of it. The cantina scene early on.
Yeah, where they play jizz. That's the music being played.
Is that what it's called?
In the cantina scene, yeah, the music's being played. Yep, it's called jizz music.
Okay. So they had some aliens, costumes designed, but as they're getting ready to, and Lucas is going in and being like, well, we have this scene, we need to film all these aliens. He's like, we don't have enough of these things. So he goes to some of the guys that work there and are like, do you guys know of anyone? He's like, well, in my free time, I actually design like monster masks and stuff like that. He's like, do you have any homies? He's like, oh yeah, I got a bunch of homies. Like, go get them, bring them back. And so a lot of those masks and aliens that are in that first scene are old like monster masks that they were using for like home movies and things like that, or they were just making for fun.
Just silicone molded.
And then those became established races or species in Star Wars that then were put in other movies or like cartoons and stuff, just because that was a mask that guy had happened to have.
Do you have any special info on how they did Jabba?
Jabba was a puppet to begin with, like was
Really?
an animatronic. Yeah, but Jabba didn't come in until technically, Jabba didn't come in until Return of the Jedi. So fast forward 2 Star Wars movies and that advancement of what they learn. During the special editions that they made, he put Jabba in CGI. So you saw Jabba technically in A New Hope, but he's CGI and it looks so much worse than the real. Like the practical Jabba, it looks so good because no one knew what a giant slug was going to move like. They're like, obviously, that's how it would move and talk.
So they're learning things as well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Just as far as like, we can improve on this in the future. We just have to let technology catch up to where we can make the improvement.
Correct. And a lot of the time, it's not even we're going to let technology. It's like we have to catch the technology.
We have to make
up.
the technology.
Correct. So Star Wars, don't have to say it, ends up becoming a massive hit. And after that, it's not as though like George Lucas is like, all right, number 2, let's start on it. That's not like an immediate given. This wasn't at a time where even if it was a box office success, that a second one was already predetermined. Lucas didn't have a script written or anything like that. He left off to where he knew he wanted to make 3, didn't have the script. He had ideas of an outline of how it was going to work. Intentionally left the opening of the movie to where there was room to do the other ones. But he just kind of went about doing other things at that point. He went back to writing. He had to actually make a script. It takes him, he's not a super great writer, so it takes him a little bit longer to make these scripts. And during this time, he's not like, well, I'm going to go ahead and keep ILM active because what are they going to be doing? I don't know what ships are going to be. I don't know what characters are going to be. I don't know what special effects are going to be needed because I don't know what scenes are going to be in this movie. So he has to kind of like shut it down. Even after this thing wins the Academy Award for Best Visual Effects, there's not enough of a demand for movies being made for them to be like, hey, we can just go do special effects for this movie. So
Really?
Yeah. So a lot of these guys end up getting on with other companies to kind of use their skill sets of being like, hey, I just worked on Star Wars. That's going to get your foot in kind of any door. And
this is a Walt Disney type thing, right? In the animators, just going beyond Disney or going from Disney's first couple ventures to other places.
These guys basically, I'm trying to kind of think of how to put it.
Because they're like, freelancers.
Yes, but this is basically like a movie where the group of heroes end up defeating the bad guy. And at the end of the movie, they're like, until we meet again. And they all go, they all go their separate ways. But it's like, if you ever need to call on any of us, we'll come running. So a couple of these guys, I had to mention this, as people go their separate ways. This isn't a huge team. I think there's maybe 20 to 30 guys that were at ILM at this point. So they kind of go their separate ways. A couple of the guys go to work on Flesh Gordon.
Hell yeah. Good choice.
Flesh Gordon.
What? A porno?
A porno version of Flash Gordon. They go to design the props and sets for Flesh Gordon. Look it up. Okay. Everybody look it up.
Look it up. I'm going to watch it later.
So as they go their separate ways, John Dykstra, he moves on to Battlestar Galactica. I think it might have just been called Galactic at that time, and helps design the ships and the look of, the look of their special effects and everything like that. He brings a few of the people along with him, kind of keeps some of the group together. And this allows them as a unit to continue the opportunity to keep developing these effects. Did you just look it up?
Yeah.
Okay. So they're working on, and they're still kind of in the wheelhouse of what they're going to be doing next because Galactica's in space.
Yeah, it's not really a lateral move, but it's kind of a move in the same area.
Correct. And they're having to work within the funding that Galactica has. It's not like they can walk into the warehouse and just be like, hey, we're just going to use all this stuff. So they're still trying to piece together and they're developing their craft even more because they're not having to take a break from doing that.
Was this a Lucas studio that they were in, or a Lucas building, or was this something that ILM owned? Nope. I guess ILM's still Lucas, though.
Correct. ILM is just George Lucas's special effects company, specifically at this point used only for Star Wars.
So they're not using like the same
It's not like
areas.
It's not like Galactica's like, hey, ILM, we want to hire you for this. After Star Wars, George Lucas was like, ILM's actually technically not in business right now, and other people from that company have to go find jobs. So they're working for these other special effects companies or production houses or whatever.
God, that feels like it would be a step down.
And that's why people go, yeah, that's why people, Flesh Gord, man, that's why they're having to make that. So once the decision is made that Empire Strikes Back is going to be made, Lucas is like, well, for my special effects, I don't have to be in a position to where I need sounds or like stages and everything. I don't need to be at Fox. I don't need to be at the studio to use their big, stages, basically, their big sets. These are all things that can be made in an office in an industrial park, and it doesn't have to be here in LA. So he's like, I'm going to actually move ILM up to outside of San Francisco in Marin. And he basically tells a ton of the people, pretty much like maybe 80-90% of the people that were working at ILM on the first movie, hey, it's going to be moving up here, but there's a place for you. If you want to come up here, we'll get you a place. We're going to start working on the new movie. It needs to surpass all the things that the first movie has built up as expectation.
Is this the beginning of Skywalker Ranch?
No. This is This is going to be in an industrial park. All right. This office building they move into, they're like, we weren't even the only ones in the industrial park. We had an auto mechanic down at one side, and then at the other side there was like another business. We had a good chunk of it.
Mechanic could be helpful,
perhaps, but again, they just like they did when they were shooting A New Hope and some of the special effects. They use the parking lot for a lot of stuff. They blow shit up in the parking lot. They have an empty lot across the street. And he's like, we blew a lot of shit up in that empty lot. John Dykstra doesn't get the call, though.
Really?
Yeah, there was a lot of contention between him and George Lucas. They did interviews in this documentary for both of them. Dykstra is talking about, he's like, did it hurt? He's like, fuck yeah, I helped, I contributed. I knew that, I was young and that I probably wasn't the most tactful at this kind of stuff, but I feel I had earned an opportunity to come out there. But George felt that there was a lot of distraction from kind of what I brought and that it didn't outweigh the negatives. The guy is really gracious about it. He's like, I think I was probably just too young and volatile at the time. Because again, dude, these aren't like 40-year-old people doing this. No. These are guys that are in their early 20s that just have these habits that they still developed from being kids, shooting their own home movies and doing their own special effects that are now coming into this.
That takes a lot of self-awareness to be able to look back and say that.
Knowing what you missed out on.
Well, and just being like, this is probably why I missed out on it.
Yeah, it would be very hard not to be bitter about that.
Just to be like, yeah, I probably wasn't the guy that I should have been at that time. Like, it's to know that you did the first Star Wars and then you get passed up and you see what the franchise has done to just want to be a part of it. You got to just swallow it and be like, all right. I'm sure Dykstra went on to have a pretty illustrious career.
I don't know. I didn't look up John Dykstra that much. I had to keep moving on to who then takes over and who keeps doing other stuff.
But as far as he would probably have a fairly decent
I would imagine
golden ticket at that point.
He definitely stayed within the industry. I would imagine. Yeah. So Empire Strikes Back is put into production. They go to this, they end up calling it the Kerner facility because it was on Kerner Street. And as they're walking into this big ass warehouse, there's no offices for the artists. There's no offices for sound guys. There's no offices for all these different, stop motion capture. So they're like, okay, here's a bunch of 2x4s. Just lay out what your office wants, the size of your office. And then we'll have the construction guys come in and actually put up the walls. Well, you had people that would go in at night and the artist department would kick over their board 2 feet into like the sound departments to try to get more room out of their office. And then you'd come in the next day and the walls would already be built. Again, the pressure's on to repeat the magic and to, do even better. So one of the opening scenes for Empire Strikes Back is the Battle of Hoth. It's on the ice planet. It's got the big 4-legged Imperial walkers.
Yes.
So all of that is done. The Imperial walkers is done with stop motion.
That kind of makes sense. I feel like you can see how they move in that. And that would be
it lends to that because he's like, the only reason that we felt that we could do a great job in stop motion is because these things are mechanical.
Yeah, it's a good pairing.
Yeah, they don't move organically. They move within the joints and articulation that we move when we actually do the stop motion. But they were showing, these guys had a 30-foot section of Hoth that was built, and these models that were probably about a foot tall and had all these different ways to articulate them, and were designed because they had to be so detailed in a way where they're telling the prop designer, the model makers, hey, we need you to incorporate gears in here that will move and shift as we turn the legs because this thing has to show mechanical movement and piston movement. We need the guns on it to be able to go backwards and forwards. So during shots where it's going to be firing, we can show the recoil on the guns. So there was a guy, I don't know, I want to say his name was Tippett. I actually have it here. Hold on. Phil Dippett was one of the main guys, and he would basically, the stage was set up about 2 feet off the ground, and you would have to crawl under it, and there were certain hatches in it that you would have to open up, adjust them very, very, adjust the other one behind it, go back down, wait for them to shoot it, take a look at the shot, make sure it was done, go for the next shot, go back under the thing, open the trap door, move them a little bit more, move this leg here that maybe it fired a shot, so I need to move the gun in on this one. Okay.
Oh my
Close it. Need to go back to take the shot, review the shot. Does it look good? Okay. Go back. And had to just do this for days on end to get that scene. The scene with like the snow speeders coming in was all done with the same kind of effects where they would hold the snow speeder and have the camera rotating around it. The tauntauns, those animals, the one that like Han cuts open and shoves Luke inside to keep him warm. So that's claymation, basically, with a little guy that's very highly detailed on it. So anytime you see that riding, it is the tiny guy riding on it. But this Dippet guy was showing, he's like, it's not just about the creature's movement. So he would be like, it's an articulated skeleton. I have to then put clay on top of it to where it can move, but it shows the musculature in the body. And then I have to find something to stretch over it to make it look like fur. But there's not synthetic fur made. So what this guy...
What? Back then there wasn't synthetic fur yet?
Not for what they were going to be seeing at the detail and everything, like hair of like an animal. So what this guy did, he actually goes and finds a piece of calf hair skin, because calf hair is a lot finer. Mm-hmm. So he gets this piece, he puts glue, you cover, and I don't know how they figured out this process. You put glue on the fur side, you then put it in a container with maggots. The maggots eat away all the flesh. As the maggots eat away all the flesh, you then wash out all the glue and you apply some type of like latex to it, and it then designs it to where it's basically a fur covered piece of like stretchable skin. And they take this and they stretch it over the model of the tauntaun and like pin it in place. So when you see that in the movie, that's real animal hair that they had to create some process to design to put on this little 1 foot tall model that they had to use stop motion on it.
Wow. What about the tauntaun that he slices open?
That's a physical prop where it's down on the ground.
Really?
They built it to scale, and then they basically just had it to where they had pressure, and when you opened it and did the lightsaber, they probably had like some type of zipper or like quick release, and then the pressure on the inside would force out whatever prop guts they made.
Wow, dude. That's nuts.
So one of the ideas when they were developing this for the Imperial Walkers is one of the guys got a hold of the Norwegian army and he's like, hey, we're going to be shooting this scene in the snow, probably going to be shooting up somewhere in Norway. Do you mind if we borrow some tanks and then put some stuff on top of them and everything? And they're like, oh yeah, you can have like 6 tanks to use for your guys' thing. You guys are shooting the new Star Wars movie, right? Yeah, definitely have these tanks. Well, one of the guys was looking through this art book and he saw this thing that was basically a picture of a truck, but it was like all of this futuristic Tomorrowland stuff, and the truck had 4 legs on it for cargo movement. He's like, why don't we make it like a 4-legged walker? And so again, these guys are just getting inspiration for these things.
Just on the fly?
Yeah.
Basically? Wow, dude.
They figured out, because they're shooting on like a white screen, that they had to figure out how to do certain things when shooting models against different colored screens, because in black, if you have those little like outline, they call them matte lines. If you're shooting something, the camera tends to outline the object that's in focus.
Yeah.
If it's against a white background and you're trying to put that, it's always going to have a little black outline around it. And you're going to be like, oh, that obviously looks fake. So there were ways that they found that they could like pass the film through a certain type of projector and then pass it back through another type of like lens that would take out these little fuzz lines. So again, they're just experimenting. Like, so I was like, hey, you know what? What if we put it through this, projector? Because I've noticed that the projection does this on it. And then I know that this lens does this. Let's just give it a try. And they just do this shit, trial and error.
Did that soften it enough? Was that too much? Does it look worse now?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So during the start of, or during kind of the production of Empire Strikes Back, George is like, you know what we need to start doing? We need to start working on digital stuff. Film is great and everything like that, but there's this new technology that they're utilizing for even just like pictures and things like that, for storage, for sound. The music industry had started to kind of use some stuff for digital recordings.
Yeah.
And he's like, I think this is going to be the future. Let's start looking into digital while still doing all of this, ILM prop stuff. This is still our bread and butter while we figure out if this is going to be the next phase of filmmaking.
So was the guy that replaced Dykstra in this second iteration of ILM, had he been a previous member of the original
That's
crew?
kind of how it kind of is always going to work. The guys that were kind of the OGs are going to step up into these like positions or be heads of departments.
Gotcha. So this wasn't a completely foreign entity that a guy walked into. This was somebody who already had their feet wet.
Yeah, and then knew everybody, knew people's skills, had the knowledge of working with everybody, worked with everyone too, to bounce off ideas and try to figure out ways to help each other out. So you just had this pool of knowledge of just weird out there like tactics and tricks.
And not to mention, you had the entire bag that those guys developed doing Flash Gordon.
Exactly.
So you can pretty much do anything at that point.
Any ship shaped like a dick, they knew exactly how to shoot it. One of the guys that did the original drawings for like some of like Star Wars, the storyboards, his name was Ralph McQuarrie. He did the posters, I want to say, for like the Star Wars movies, like the painted ones and everything.
Pretty historic posters.
Yep. He's done a bunch of other posters for movies and everything, kind of in that same style. So he was one of these matte background designers. So this is like old school film tactics where you would draw on a piece of glass a really detailed background with a place that was cut out. That would be the focal point where the action for the actors was going to be going on. So in a lot of these scenes in Star Wars, when you see, there's a scene where when they get on the Death Star, Obi-Wan Kenobi has to lower the tractor beam. He walks out and there's this giant like chasm, but it's highly detailed. There's lights coming from it. It's like a exhaust shaft in like the Death Star. And he has to walk out over it and around this other thing. He's 2 feet off the ground, but it's not like we can just turn that into a green screen because that doesn't exist. That's simply just a painting that they then put in front of the camera when it was there to make it look seamless. You had stuff that happened like that for backgrounds when they have like the Millennium Falcon. They'll have a section of it built, but then the painting will actually be the other section of it plus the background.
And the glass is pulled in closer to the lens?
Yeah, exactly.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And so that means that as these artists, you have to know exactly the lines of perspective that are going to be matching up, the angles for distances, things. So Ralph was really good at drawing these insanely detailed, very elaborate like cityscapes and things like that. But one of the guys that was working with him and doing some of the other map backgrounds was like, Ralph can't draw clouds for shit. So like and one of the scenes in Empire Strikes Back is they're in Cloud City and they're flying through it. And so there was an instance where he was like, I know how to draw clouds and I know how to draw them. He's like, Ralph can't draw clouds for shit. So he'd be like, Ralph, he's like, I'm having some problems over here with the detail work on all of this stuff. Would you be able to come help me? You know what? Why don't you just take the reins on the detailed stuff that's really going to be, front and center, and I'll take some of the tedious stuff. Like I'll do the clouds.
Swapsies.
Yeah, exactly. So Walter Cronkite actually came by to do like a special on ILM after the popularity of Star Wars. People wanted to know how the effects were made. And so George is showing him around and they're showing him how the Tauntaun movement was done. So they have him in the room. The Tauntaun is up on like the table. There's the background behind it. And you have like the little stands that hold it in its place. And there are two guys back there. I don't even know if they were the guys that did the stop motion. And they had he's like, we were just fucking with Walter Cronkite during this. We had all of this stuff up there that wasn't necessary to do stop motion. We were looking at stuff through different lenses and we had like protractors that we were using to catch the movement. We were moving it and had all these stands and they didn't know any better. No one knew any better. He's like, it was just funny because we were sitting there and Walter Cronkite is just watching it and like, oh, is this how the magic happens? I think he also turns to Lucas and he's like, you're kind of ruining the magic of the movie for me.
Fuck you. You wanted to come see how the sausage was made.
Just weird shit like during a scene where the Millennium Falcon is escaping through an asteroid field. You have perspective of close up, further away. And again, this is all just things placed on like a scene. And then you're shooting the camera and then you're using, the motion and the Falcon will be put in through like another shot. And he's like, we got to the point where we were just tired of making these model asteroids. So I just told the guys to go down to the store and get the most asteroid looking potatoes that they could find. And we'll just use those for the ones in the back. So they show a scene where they're flying through and it stops and it's like arrow, potato, arrow, potato, arrow, potato. And you're looking, and as you look, you're like, holy shit, that is a potato. But then in the scene, there's no way that you could catch it. One of the scenes, he's like, we had a ship in the back in the distance. And of course, you wouldn't be able to tell what kind of ship it was, but it was my shoe.
So as they're shooting that, is that camera moving or is that them just using gravity for the asteroid fields that they're flying through?
So those would be like on sticks where they'd be able to kind of move them past like the cockpit of the Millennium Falcon. So they're having the view from the front of the Millennium Falcon and then have the asteroids kind of moving on the outside.
And they had figured out how to pull the sticks out.
Exactly. The same way they would do it with stop motion, because when you're doing stop motion, you have these things that are holding it from all these multiple angles. ILM starts to actually, at this point, Lucas knows that after Star Wars, people are like, if this is the next phase of kind of the evolution of movies, we need to start probably developing methods of either developing our own special effects for other studios, or we can start going to ILM since they already have it set up. So Lucas is like, yeah, let's start taking, other deals from stuff. Basically, he tells them, if any of my buddies come to you and need special effects work, you do their movies first and foremost. So these are guys like Steven Spielberg. These are guys like Francis Ford Coppola.
So if you're on the outside of Lucas's bubble, you're making a movie without ILM?
You would have to hope that they had the manpower and the space available to fit you in, and you had the money.
I was going to say that's probably what drove anything outside of his circle.
And you'd have to have big studio funding to try to probably beat out these other places. All right, before we go any further, let's take a bathroom break.
Good.
Well, hello. Listen, while we head to the restroom and get ourselves something to drink, why don't you do something nice for yourselves? Head on over to patreon.com/historicallyhigh and get signed up for a little bonus content. I mean, come on, you deserve it.
If you want to keep up with this, our main source of social media is going to be our Instagram, which is historically high pod, POD.
You can also head over to, it's Twitter. It's X. It's Twitter. Come on. At historically high. And that's high, H-I like high.
If you have any recommendations you want to get to us, just want to reach out and say hello, you can hit us up on our email at historicallyhighpodcast, HIGH podcast @gmail.com.
All right. And with that said, let's get back to the good stuff. All right. So, like I was saying, they kind of get the okay to start working with Lucas's buddies. Spielberg is one of them that's obviously going to be on deck. And Indiana Jones is kind of how that comes to be.
No way.
Is kind of funny. So after Star Wars had come out, I'm not sure if it was before it came out, it was still working, so he was stressed out because he didn't know if all the special effects were going to get done, or if it was right after it came out and he was just like tired of the shit. But Lucas and Spielberg go on Christmas vacation to Hawaii. And while they're there, Lucas is asking Spielberg, he's like, what do you want to do? Like, what do you want to do for your next movie? And Spielberg's like, I've been trying to get a hold of the Broccoli estate about like James Bond. He's like, this was when Sean Connery, I think, was Bond. He's like, I want to do a Bond movie. He's like, they're not really having me. And Lucas goes, I got something for you. It's not Bond, but it's a globe hopping archaeology professor who's just kind of gets in over his head, named Indiana Jones. And Tom Selleck was originally supposed to be Indiana Jones, but Magnum PI ended up getting picked up. So, of course, you got Harrison Ford, George Lucas already. That's why when you watch Indiana Jones, it's like a Lucasfilm production. So
Indy wouldn't be the same thing.
I mean, Selleck's good, but...
He's great, but Indiana Jones with a mustache doesn't make sense to me.
And if it shaved it, you're like, oh, that Tom Selleck without a mustache just looks weird. Yeah. It's distracting. So he tells Spielberg, though, he's like, here's the deal. I got 3 of these things figured out. So if you're committing for 1, you're committing for 3. And Spielberg's like, yeah, let's have at it. So ILM is going to step in. Since Lucas already has it written, he knows that ILM is going to be able to do this stuff for the special effects. Some of the just kind of point out, and I'm going to go through some movies and just kind of call out the memorable special effects that'll come to most people's minds. Raiders of the Lost Ark is obviously the first Indiana Jones movie. It was just called Raiders of the Lost Ark. It wasn't Indiana Jones. And the scene where they are opening the Ark at the very end, when Indiana Jones and Marion are tied up to the pole and the Nazis have finally found it and they start to open it, the stuff that flows out of it and the spirits and everything, and then the lightning that shoots through all of the Nazis, the melting of the little Goebbels guy, the little creepy dude, how his face melts and his skin melts off and then it turns into a skeleton. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember the light.
And then one of the guys, his face like crumbles in on itself and the other guy, his face explodes.
Yeah, okay. Yes,
so to make melting, crumbling in, exploding, ILM's taken this. So they were like, okay, so what we're going to do for the special effects for like shooting bolts through the Nazis is we'll put like, for them that are like glowing, we'll put like a reflective piece on their chest. We'll put like reflective pieces on their eyes. So when the bolt that we'll put in post through like a, overlapping of scenes, will shine a light on it. It looks like it's shocking into them and shocking through their eyes.
Oh, and it was just a reflector.
Yeah. The bolt was created essentially like the, electric or the spiritual electricity that comes out and everything.
Bit of a lightsaber.
Kind of. My favorite thing is how they did the melting guy. So they took the skull, what it ends up at the very end, and they basically made a layered head with different stuff. They're like, this is the layer for the muscles, this is the layer for the fat, this is the layer for the skin, all that stuff. And they built a model head. They built it out of the same stuff that I believe dentists use to do certain things.
Amalgam?
It might be for taking
impressions?
Yep. So they designed this thing, and they're like, crazy thing about this stuff is when you apply heat to it, it melts off. So what they did is they put the head in front of the camera, had it wearing the hat and everything like that, and then just took a heat gun from underneath it and did it. And took a long form shot of just watching these different layers melt off of it and just sped it up. So it looks like he's just melting via layers.
Yeah, that makes sense.
The other guy, I think they were able to design a head that they had wires all along the inside of it. And so when it came time for his face to implode, they just pulled all the wires that were connected at different points within the inside of the face and it shrunk it in on itself. Wow. They did that too. Do you remember Poltergeist?
Yeah.
Like, they're here.
Yep. Yeah.
Do you remember the scene at the end where they get out of the house and the house ends up getting imploded and sucked into that?
Yeah, man, that scene haunted me for a while.
There's no way to do that except to do it as a practical effect because a computer can't do that. So ILM did the special effects for Poltergeist. And how they designed it is, and these are different guys that are coming up with these ideas. He's like, we built a perfect replica of the house, but a smaller scale. It was maybe like 5 feet by 5 feet. Highly detailed. You looked in the garage and all the details for like the bikes and the lawnmower and the trash cans were all in there.
Lens to the perspective.
He's like, we built it with balsa wood, but before we built it, we soaked the balsa wood for a few days in a certain solution that made it like brittle, like dry pasta. We then did like the lightest materials, and we had certain parts of it that were touching, but that weren't built together. And then we took guitar string or piano wire, and we attached it to all these different points like they did in that guy's face. And then we designed a suction device that sat right under it that was going to be high pressure suction. And it would, once it started crumbling in on itself, the suction would begin, it would start sucking the pieces down. And then one of the guys who was ILM's head for a while, but just kind of a designer or like one of the fucking magicians at this point, he's like, for good measure to make sure the thing came apart, we put 2 shotguns up on each side of it to where they would also blast it downward, making it cave in on itself and then sucking in through the thing. And the shot at the end of Poltergeist is they're like, we had to do it once because it would have cost $1,000 to do the shot again for this.
When in doubt, add shotguns.
Apparently, E.T. Most memorable scene in E.T. where all of a sudden the bikes take off and they're flying and you see him flying across in front of the moon.
Guide wires, right?
For that scene?
Yeah.
So that would be a scene where to get them off the ground, basically you are putting the bikes on wires and then just simply pulling them. So that very first shot, because you don't see them really gain a lot of height. Everything else is done in the studio where there's a background behind them. You have the kid up there. You have someone with a giant fan that's kind of the same way they do green screen now.
So slow rise is probably them moving the screen as opposed to raising the bicycle or tricycle.
Yes.
Wow.
Or doing, or also having miniatures. Super highly detailed miniatures of these kids that are on the bikes that they're able to then actually move along how they want or move the camera and pan it around it.
Huh. Wild. Before we keep going, the boulder scene, Indiana Jones. Mm-hmm. How?
Practical effect.
Really?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's designed, basically, that thing is made of like all the rocks in there are made of like styrofoam.
Yeah. I mean, you can tell the way they bounce, but there's no other way to.
But that's just a soundstage that's built. And that's where, and I mean, ILM had some hand in that, but that's almost a pretty entire practical effect of that, him just running out of that scene. They do the same thing in when they used to do the Indiana Jones Stunt Spectacular show in Disney World. They would have kind of a recreation of that scene.
Huh.
They work on the second Star Trek.
Ooh, now we're crossing.
Yeah, so Spielberg's like, fuck it, man. Like, you're doing your own thing. You want to pay me? You want to help support this company? Yeah. So they work on Star Trek, A Wrath of Khan, where the 2 ships are like going against each other in the nebula. I think they may have kind of like been like, we're going to give you like B+ work for this, so it's not quite as good, but we're still going to do some good shit.
I don't want to offend any Trekkies, but agreed. I feel like that's the right move. If you're Star Wars to start out, you can't give Star Trek your...
But no one knew, because no one knew what ILM was. There was no knowledge of this. They could see ILM at the end and be like, I don't even know what that is. I don't know what special effects are. They're just like, it's fucking spaceship.
So special effects, the most underappreciated thing in movies back then.
It kind of feels like it. There's a couple cool things I want to point out for certain scenes. They may not be super memorable, but the effect itself is just crazy. So there are certain scenes in movies. There's one in Indiana Jones, it's Raiders. It's where they are trying to dig down to find the Ark. It ends up being that temple that has all the snakes in it. And there's a scene where Indiana Jones is standing and all the people are digging around him, and it starts to become dark, and the clouds roll in this really cool, like artistic way. Almost, I'm trying to think, I can't describe it, like moving cumulonimbus clouds that are like rolling clouds. And I was like, how did they do that? They're like, and they showed it. So they would have a water tank, a large water tank.
Yeah.
And the water tank would have a platform in the middle of it, underwater. The bottom half would be cold salt water, and it would be warm fresh water above because they would separate.
Mm-hmm.
You would take a hose and go down right to where that little divider was, that thin divider, and you would inject this temperate mix in there. And as it went out into the water, because of the mixture, it would billow out in a cloud. So kind of how you see there's some of those weird video or things on Instagram where you see the guy injecting ink into like a sphere and it kind of clouds in first.
Yeah.
It was kind of that same principle, but they were able to use that, film that, and then overlay that into a movie to have that be like the background. So it's like chemical. They're doing things to create clouds by creating chemicals and putting them underwater.
Am I off to say like the blood in some of the beginning scenes of like a Bond movie, like a Bond title?
Oh, you're talking about like the how they're always artsy, but it's never like live action. It's like silhouettes spinning and like naked chicks in oil.
There's like injections of ink or something into water where it looks like it spreads like a
in newer ones, yes, but I don't know if that it was ever in the older ones. But yes, kind of like that, yeah. During Raiders, I think one of the things, going back to the face melting thing, that's one of the things that Spielberg told him. Didn't tell him, he had no idea how they were going to do it. He's like, just so you know, with this guy in the movie, everyone hates this guy. He's like painting a picture. He's like, this is the evil Nazi guy. I would like his face to melt off. He's like,
done.
And they're just like, oh, okay, we'll figure. We don't have a procedure for melting a face off because it's never been done. We'll figure it out.
That has to be what drives these guys, though, is to keep hearing shit to know that they have to create it.
Can you imagine if this is your fucking gym? This is why these feel like my people.
It's a fantasy factory.
It is. And to have someone come up to you and be like, hey, we're paying you to do this. I want you to figure out a prop in a way to where we can film it to make it look like someone's face is melting. You're just like, that's the fucking coolest thing.
Well, and then you have also just a background and an understanding of how to get similar effects, but you need to tailor it to get it perfectly. You have to get that layering method to be like, all right, we need a color change variance so you can see everything that's dripping off.
Yeah.
What does George Lucas think probably when he's seeing what they're doing for Raiders?
I mean, I would imagine, I think in Lucas's like version, I don't know if it was, I want his face to melt off. Maybe he was just like, and then the three Nazi leaders standing closest to the Ark die in a spectacular fashion. That's one thing that gets pointed out too. In his scripts, when he gives them to ILM because they're going through them to look for scenes to get ideas even while he's doing filming, is sometimes there will just be, and then a very intense space battle breaks out. And he just leaves it at that, and you're just like, so he just wants us to figure out a way to make a very intense space battle. They would do it. They would come up with storyboards first before they made the commitment to filming it. And he would come in to the room that had 100 different storyboards that these artists are constantly just drawing. They said it didn't take them long to figure out that they needed to make copies because the first couple of times they put up the originals not knowing what was going to happen. And Lucas just went up there with a red marker and was like, nope, cross this part, I like this part, cross this part. And the guys are just like, oh, fuck.
That took 2 hours to draw.
Yeah, exactly. And now I have to redraw that to get, I could have just altered that or erased that part. Yeah.
Fuck.
But they figured it out. But anyway, so it gets past that point, and then, he has to be like, okay, I want these 50 shots, and then they have to figure out a way to shoot that. So sometimes he gives them vague direction, and these guys are just like, what would be cool?
It's just an open world. It's an open space.
Yeah. What does everyone want to see? We're gathered around after work. Hey, call out some cool shit that you want. What if one like barrel rolls and flips over it? And they're like, yeah.
This is me creating wrestling matches in my head with my action figures as a kid.
This is me taking 2 Lego things and flying one after the other and be like, choo, 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 and like doing shit like that. So after Empire comes out. Again, ILM wins the Academy Award for visual effects. They also win it for Raiders. They also win it for E.T. Return of the Jedi is kind of the next big thing. They're doing movies, again, for other companies. I think when it comes time for Lucas's film to be made, it's just kind of like, hey, we're not taking any other jobs. We're focusing on the boss's shit now.
Is there anything that they didn't touch? Because I guess you could call Poltergeist horror, but I feel like this is really a right up their alley with the special effects that they could do for like an actual decent horror film.
One of the guys loved horror movies.
Yeah.
So if it would come to be like doing horror stuff, he would already have an idea about like jump scares, how stuff should look. One of the heads of the departments was that guy. There was another head that was more kind of like even keeled and stuff like that. And he's like, that made us such a good team because he could handle this. I could handle that. Yeah. So I don't really think there was a lot off the table.
It's just a well-rounded machine. They have a little bit of everything, which is so crazy to think that it's just, this wasn't like, hey, we're going to go search these guys out. This is just like, yeah, no, I worked on this project with this guy. I had drinks with this dude. He was telling me about what he was doing. Let's bring him in. Let's see what he's got. And you just have these pieces coming together.
Yeah.
Wow.
One of the, like Return of the Jedi, again, they're using a ton of practical models because, again, there's no CG. This is well before it. They're having to step up every time to give something new, to make something, more fantastical. Do you remember the speeder bike scene where they are going through they're on Endor with all the teddy bear dudes, Ewoks, and Luke and Leia take off and have to chase down a couple Imperial guys on speeder bikes, and they're traveling. They shot it in the redwoods in California, but it's the fast action chase on hover motorcycles, basically.
Okay,
through the woods.
Yeah. That the word bike was throwing me off because I kept thinking tires, but I just remember them flying.
So that's ILM figuring out because we have to go out and shoot a camera through the woods. We have to be able to speed it up, but then we have to also show action going on between the actors and putting them in the scene. And then, bringing those two scenes together.
Yeah, crushing it all together.
Yeah. Wow. And it showed how they just started out doing it. They had a thing mock up on the floor, and they had two things on speeder bikes on sticks, and they're like, how about we do it this way? And then they hit together, and then this is where they get stuck. And then this is how it swoops around this tree, and they're just storyboard guys writing it down, and he's like, okay, I'll draw it up. So they're developing these scenes.
Thinking about the way that the X-Wings moved, and you were talking about how they move the camera, it just doesn't, it feels like magic.
Yeah.
Just the way that they flew in different space fights. And the fact that you were saying that a lot of these fights that they're having in space, as far as these shootouts, if this is just left up to the ILM guys, this goes beyond special effects. This is just pure imagination.
Yeah.
To figure this shit out. This is, I wouldn't say that you would attribute like the way a fight scene necessarily happens in Star Wars to being Lucas' brilliance in the way that he writes it, but Lucas looks pretty good in some of these situations, probably because ILM was creative enough to put together a great battle scene.
I mean, he has final approval, so he's picking out, he gives direction if he sees something and he's like, that's good, but I see it more this way. I think there are a lot of circumstances where he gives them a general direction and they're adding in their little flair, their little flavor. And man, if you're going to pick people to do stuff that looks cool in sci-fi, you pick the nerds that have been following it their entire lives.
Yeah, they're your consumers.
Mm-hmm. But to know how many shots, like if you're looking at the space battle and you see how many shots it goes to an X-Wing that shows a taken maneuver or a TIE fighter, and just thinking to yourself, that's literally just one pass with the camera at a certain dedicated angle, and that's just that one shot. And then they go and they have to take it at another angle to make it turn this way. And then they piece these two shots together. And yeah, it's nuts when you think about it. Making Jedi was a really tough experience kind of on everybody because the pressure was so high and because they were trying to meet deadlines. Lucas was probably stressed out. There were some people that were just kind of getting burnt out as well because they had been working nonstop. They, other jobs that other directors had or other companies had. And so after Jedi, I want to say that they kind of slowed down. Another one of their like key founding members, he was just like, I'm going to go kind of maybe start my own thing. not so much pressure, but I have a skill set that I like to focus on this stuff. I'm going to keep going in this direction with it. Spielberg, it led to some layoffs because they kind of dipped down a little bit. Spielberg, however, keeps sending to movies. You got to take care of Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. You recall the minecart scene when they're trying to escape the Temple of Doom. That's all ILM. The set where they are dropping the guy down into it to burn him, to take out his heart and all that kind of stuff, that's all ILM. Any of that stuff is the part where they're coming out of the airplane and stuff like that and going down the ski slope in the raft.
If you're working on the other parts of the movie that ILM isn't working on, you're just kind of trying to get it to the next ILM scene, right? You're just trying not to screw it up in order to get it to more of the... Because you're not having ILM do the entire movie.
The way I look at it is, back then, I think story was important if the movie did not have special effects, because you have to keep people interested in it.
Absolutely.
Once special effects came along, you could make movies that didn't maybe have to be the best as far as the dialogue or the storyline if you could dazzle somebody, if you could fucking show them something they'd never seen before. And I think we're kind of having a reversal of that nowadays, where we've seen so much shit. Like, there's nothing that can be that we haven't seen.
Yeah. Well, just talking about Avatar in the beginning, I'm sure that it's cinematically wonderful, but I can't. We've already seen probably a lot of it in 1 and 2.
Yeah.
So it's a great concept, but it almost is going to rely on a better script because we've already seen it. You think?
No, 100%. Think of it this way too. That movie is 95%. Not even the people in it. They're motion capturing characters that are CGI. It's 99 to 100% CGI.
Yeah, and it's, I mean, to draw a parallel in my own mind, I guess an opposite, a perpendicular in my own mind, is you have comedies that have lived through the ages. Dumb and Dumber didn't have any special effects. Tommy Boy didn't have any special effects. They could get by on the shit that they had to because they had such a script that would keep you involved all the time.
Spectacle isn't funny all the time.
Yeah.
People are funny. Spectacle is for action, and
And so when you move into action or horror or anything like that, it's like, we can take a back seat maybe to some of these. We'll give some powerful monologues. The conversation doesn't have to be really riveting because we're about to have a crazy fight scene coming up in 5 minutes.
Yeah. So just some other movies that are being made and handled by ILM. Goonies.
Right.
All of the Back to the Futures.
Goonies, probably the ending portion.
Yeah, where it shows the pirate ship out in the distance. Yeah.
Okay.
Probably some scenes that maybe required more practical effects, like when they're under the well and the pipes are all like going up and down, things like that. Back to the Future, you don't have that movie if you can't figure out a way to, I guess, believably at that time show that this car is traveling through time.
Do you think they were the ones that were writing out some of the verbiage that Doc Brown was using, or do you think that was all in the script?
That was probably in the script, but I also think that you send that to ILM and you're like, I have this vision. This is the DeLorean. How do you think this would travel through time? I just think it'd be cool if when it went through time, if it maybe left like tire marks, like flaming tire marks, something like that. And the guys are like,
semblance of reality.
Yeah. So the guys at ILM were thinking, okay, well, it's getting speed up. It would charge up. And then what if it starts throwing energy in front of it to like open the temporal wormhole or something? And then you get that effect where you see that thing disappear before it hits Marty and Doc, leaving the trail of flames between their legs.
God, so ILM made the DeLorean, huh?
I don't know if they made the DeLorean, but they made the DeLorean travel through time.
It just looks like something that they could have created just based upon what you're saying.
Think of Back to the Future too. When they go to the future.
Yeah.
That's ILM. Who Framed Roger Rabbit?
That makes sense. I could see that. I'm not hopefully spoiling anything, but going off of that, The Mask had to have had some involvement,
ILM.
right? Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Yeah. Okay. So Roger Rabbit, obviously the cartoon inside of the real world, that seems like it's right up their alley, but there still has to be advancements. I mean, it's not the same thing as Star Wars.
Yeah, I don't know if it's too inside baseball to talk about this, but
Buddy,
when
we're
they-
so deep now.
okay, when they get into computer graphics and things like that, when they start using those to a high degree, the challenge becomes creating something believable, as in, we have to make this thing move like a human face, or like it has to have the musculature, because they run into a lot of situations. They ran into one on Jurassic Park that I'll go into more detail on, where they don't know how a dinosaur runs, but they have to try to kind of figure it out based on the skeleton, based on existing creatures, and then find something that looks believable, but that also doesn't catch your eye in the wrong way, because we're so used to seeing things move in nature. If something moves unnaturally, we can usually tell.
Yeah.
Like if your dog just even has a little hitch and limps, you're like, that's not okay. What's going on there? So if people see that, it takes them out of the believability about it. But that's a little bit further up. ILM at this point is allowing movies to be made that 5 years, 10 years before this, people either hadn't had the ability to even come up with, because what's the point? Like, they don't know what the possibilities are. So why explore those options?
It's a massive, muse isn't the right word. Inspiration, maybe. You think to know, like, these crazy things that I'm thinking up in my mind are now more possible, that I can put them into a movie?
I think you have a lot more people being creative about that. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think that leaves you a lot more.
They have that same potential in them to create a script that will live up to what ILM can do.
And when ILM is like working during this time, there's instances where kids that follow Star Wars, that got really into Star Wars, that bought the books, that found the making of Star Wars that came out in the magazines and stuff, and they got to see these peeks behind the scene at ILM. You have the interviews with people that were with ILM that are like, I was 12 when Star Wars came out, and I knew that that's what I wanted to do. And so when I was 18, I went to this school. And then after that, I figured out that I could get on with ILM, and I went and interviewed and I got this position. Or Star Wars inspired me to start studying into this, or looking into engineering, or looking into art and things like that. And then just by happenstance, they approached me.
It's ILM, the next generation.
And it will continue to do that, and that's how this thing innovates. So Joe Johnston, one of the main guys there, he was one of the heads. He, after, I think, Jedi, he ends up coming to George Lucas, and he's like, I'm done. I'm burnt out. I can't do this anymore. He's like, I'm going to take the next year off, maybe 2 years. I'm going to take some of this money that I've made. I'm going to travel the world. And Lucas was like, okay, all right. Wouldn't you rather go to film school? And he's like, what? He's like, no, and he's like, I'll make you a deal. I'll keep you on at half salary, and I'll pay your tuition to UCLA or USC Film School. And he's like, I would have been an idiot to pass that.
Yeah.
This guy, Joe Johnston, and this was one guy I picked out as an example. I'm sure if you went back and looked at it, it would be kind of a Belichickian directing tree of people that came out of this. Joe Johnston goes, studies film at USC, and through a film that he makes at USC, and I also think through George Lucas whispering to the guy at Disney of being like, this kid's got it. His first movie is Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
Out of the gate?
And he has ILM backing him up for all the special effects. Do you think that movie is entirely special effects? The kids in the yard, the kids in the cereal, shrinking, the giant ant.
Yeah, dude, I haven't thought about that movie in a long, long time. And just all of the things that they had to create. Was it the sandwich cookie that the kids had found on the ground? That
Yeah,
they were
the
feeding
giant.
the ant?
Yep.
They have to create that prop. They have to understand the blades of grass at a molecular level to be able to make giant blades and make them look fairly accurate.
Have it look like a lawnmower's coming over the top. Yeah. He goes on also. Do you remember The Rocketeer?
Mm-mm.
It was like I liked it. It was this weird movie that seemed like it took place in like maybe the 20s or the 30s. And it was about this dude that found this prototype rocket pack that had been stolen and ends up learning how to use it. And he has like this really stylistically designed helmet. I'm trying to think of what like style it would be called. kind of like steampunkish. It's very much just kind of like a guilty pleasure movie. It's not great. You also have Jumanji. ILM does all the stuff on Jumanji.
Not their best work.
I think it's pretty good.
Their work was good. I guess the movie.
Again,
that's what I conflate is maybe.
I'm gonna have to go back as well because we're getting into time when this is all like early computer generated stuff as well. And then Captain America, the Marvel movie Captain America.
Hell yeah. Okay.
So jumping back, after Return of the Jedi, ILM starts to move into more digital methods. This also goes toward advancing sound as well. So before you would have to go and get tape for certain sounds, pick those out, isolate those, then use those to put in certain sections of movie.
Guy whacking the cable.
Yep. If you could still use the guy whacking the cable, but if you could store that digitally, where you could then just have a catalog of all those sounds instead of having to pull film and reels and just be able to say, I'm going to pull this sound effect into this movie, you're essentially creating a way to edit that's not only so much faster, but you're able to be so much more accurate because you're able to trim and place it in the exact right place that you want it to.
Does that make it sound better? I mean, in theory, yes, but it feels less natural.
But with digital, you can alter it. If you're doing it through just regular tape, it's probably a lot harder to try to change pitches and everything.
Oh, probably impossible.
And think of the difference between what they're using prior to is you're in a recording studio and you've got the mixing board in front of you versus sitting on and doing it all through like, a Pro Editor on your computer. The Pro Editor can make it much more user-friendly and accessible. Yeah. They start to also move toward doing that for film as well. So beforehand, where Lucas would be sitting in the editing bay and have to load the reels himself and have to go through them, have to cut the thing and splice it together and do all that kind of stuff. Or if he was like, okay, I like this scene. I need to see a picture or a 2-second thing from a scene on another reel. He can just go, no, we'll just pull it from the digital file and then just put it on the screen and then you can see those and put those together. So this completely revolutionizes the way that editing is done as well.
They create the flashback?
Like the diddly-doo.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess that would be it. I don't know if they created that effect. They may have done it in certain movies, I would assume. They did the work on Hook, and I think Hook has a flashback scene. So with moving over to digital methods, this isn't Spielberg being like, hey, we're going to call up this company and we're going to get a whole bunch of hard drives and all that kind of stuff in here. He's like, now we got to figure out a way to build these hard drives and to build these, storage systems. So he has these guys that have been computer geeks and looking into this stuff, or kids that have seen Star Wars that when they went to college, they went into computer sciences or computer programming and they still think ILM is the tits and movies are awesome. And they're just like, so they're sending people out to these like schools like USC and schools like UCLA that have these technology programs and be like, do you guys have anyone promising in here? And they're getting students that are picked out and they're like, hey, do you want to go work for ILM? They're like, fuck yes.
Is this primarily a very West Coast driven organization, you think?
They start to get people that they're bringing in from overseas because Star Wars is a global phenomenon.
Yeah.
It doesn't just have a fan base here in the States. So you get people that in other countries are looking into computer programming and things like that. They may not be using it for the same things there for movie production, but people are learning how to do graphic design and things of that, of kind of that ilk. Two of the guys that are one of the guys, I believe his name is John Knoll. He's with ILM for a very long time. He ends up seeing this program that ILM is developing that kind of allows you to take images from within a picture and alter them or move them around. They're not really using it for anything major, though. They're using it for like, oh, let's put a tree here, let's do that. They're using it very piecemeal as part of the editing process just to move on to the next step.
Like filler in a background?
Yes. So his brother was a computer programmer that went to like University of Michigan. He's telling his brother about this program that does this. And he's like, do you think you could like develop something that's kind of similar to this? He's like, yeah. He's like, well, what if it did this and this and this? He's like, okay, let's keep going with that. This is where we get Adobe Photoshop. These two guys end up selling this, and it's developed into Adobe Photoshop.
That's a pretty good feather in your cap.
That's a pretty good fucking feather in your cap. So creating this, this method of editing and doing special effects, sound, things like that on digital, he has to start a computer division.
Yeah.
So he has ILM, which is kind of a separate company under his ownership. He has Lucasfilm.
Yeah.
So he creates the computer division under Lucasfilm. He's leaving ILM to do the practical effects and all that kind of stuff.
Do you think that's because he realized that's probably more the money he's going to be in? I guess if he owns both of them.
It doesn't matter if he owns both, but I think what it was is he wanted ILM to focus on what they were doing.
Oh, yeah, just do what you're doing.
He's also doesn't know what this will entail. He's like, what? I don't know how long this is going to take to get. I don't want to rely on any of this stuff until it's up off the ground enough. He's starting from scratch on this.
At what point of rich is Lucas at this point?
I mean, if he's already done, all of the Star Wars, he's also the writer and producer for Indiana Jones.
Probably pretty stupid rich.
Yeah. Plus, this thing is also making money from all these other studios hiring it to do all the special effects for their movies.
So he's bankrolling this computer gig.
Oh, hands down
by himself.
Yeah, exactly. They're kind of they're the major game in town. If you can afford them, they're who you go to do the effects for your movie. The computer division starts to actually kind of in their free time because stuff is not really advanced to make it look realistic to an eye. They're using computer programs to kind of like maybe smooth over some colors or something, or maybe take something out of, or, erase on the stop motion, erasing the bars and stuff like that are holding it in place. They're using it for touch-ups, very simple stuff going, from the get-go. But in their free time, some of these people start to make these little animated films out of these little characters that they're able to do on these computers. And they're using this thing called the Pixar Image Computer.
That sounds familiar.
So, once Lucas basically has, because again, he's developing this, he doesn't need to technically keep this division specifically. He can just open up another computer division with other people. But he knows he has value in these things. So in 1986, he ends up selling the computer division to Steve Jobs. They're like, hey, can we keep the Pixar name? Because that's kind of what we're known for. And he's like, yeah, go ahead and keep the Pixar name. And he develops it into Pixar Studios, which releases Toy Story as its first movie in partnership with Disney. And then it's bought by Disney in 2006.
Turtleneck owning Pixar is just not somewhere that I thought this was going to end up.
From Lucas to Jobs to then to Disney.
To Disney.
Yeah. So this is when ILM kind of enters into the full digital age. And no one else is doing it at the pace that they're doing it because what's working for them is continuing to work. Lucas he's got 9 Star Wars movies that he's like, I've got like this whole saga mapped out in my head. And I have the means to do whatever I need to do to see if I can get the technology to a point where I can make these things that I have in my head.
It's a fun place to be, I'm sure.
So as they enter kind of that full digital age, they start working on this program for a little movie called Willow. And if you recall, there's a scene in Willow where the titular character, yes, Willow, changes this woman from, she's originally a goat, and then she changes into like a giraffe, and then a ostrich, and then a peacock, and then a lion, and then back into a woman. So as they're trying to figure this out, they're like, so are we going to have to use it's going to have to be a weird transition between like different stop motion animals that do this.
Yeah.
And one of the guys is like, actually, we can let us try this thing where we're able to kind of like offset pictures at different points. We'll take pictures of basically it's like a flip book, but we're going to take these pictures and we'll be able to, instead of making them look like they're herky-jerky going from this point to this and kind of a drastic jump, we can smooth out the edges. So they ended up calling it the Morph program, which is MORF, but that turned into the word MORPH, which we now know is when something morphs into something else.
No.
Yeah.
That word didn't exist before? I guess why would you need it though, right?
Yeah.
It's just transition back then.
And back before then, it would have been something about transmutation or alchemy.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
So computers,
Yep.
special effects, English language. That's what ILM's business is in.
At this point, kind of. Yeah, they're working on the English language part. I'm not going to be able to name everybody who's like the rock stars of this place, but I kind of picked out some of the characters that are responsible for certain pivotal things. There's this guy, Mark Dippé, and Steve Spaz Williams. And Mark Dippé was this dude that was born in Alaska, knew he had to get away, came down, went to like film school or computer programming school. Spaz was this guy that was like athletic, like a jock and everything, kind of a greaser looking dude. Ended up going into the Navy, did some like computer work in the Navy or some animation and figured out he could draw like during the Navy. And then after he got out, went to animation school. And this guy goes from working in animation to getting hired by this kind of this tech company because they still need to have animation done where they can then scan it and then manipulate it within the computer system.
Yeah.
So they have a more detailed drawing instead of drawing it on the computer itself. These guys roundabout way find their way to ILM. They end up sharing an office, and the office was in one of the old sound rooms, and so it was soundproof. So they basically turn this thing into what they call the pit. And as there's this jump in this new age of ILM, you still have the people that are out in the model shop and still the people doing that because that's still all viable stuff right now. Computer generation can't do anything as well as models can at this point. But you have this young group who's coming in that are in their 20s. They're working on these programs for film, and they just like to come into the pit and party. So like their office is just like trashed at all times. But this also starts to kind of create this weird divide between like the model shop and the people that were like kind of the old school prop people, and then also kind of this new age digital group as well.
A tale as old as time. Mm-hmm. The changing of the guards. The future is now here. And while the older generation is still valuable, the newer generation is proving to be the future.
Yep. And again, Lucas is like, if it's not going to help me get to my goals of being able to make what I have in my head, it's going to go, and I'm going to lean more into this.
What's the time frame are we talking about now?
That's a good question, because we are right up around the time that the movie The Abyss is made. And the reason I point out the movie The Abyss is there is a scene in The Abyss where there is a weird tendril or tentacle made of water that comes into like this, into the facility or whatever. And it is reacting like an animal's tentacle would, like kind of moving. And it actually almost seems like it has a sentience. And then it morphs into where it's like an image of a face, but like in water.
Yeah. So we're like 1990.
I'm trying to remember what year The Abyss came out.
I got you.
Okay. So this is something they go to ILM for. And it's going to be something you can't do something like this really with models. And,
1989.
Okay. It's talking about what they thought they were going to have to do and what ended up happening. So the director was thinking, they're like, maybe we would take some type of like white, like putty or white, ceramic that would have movement through stop motion, put some type of glaze on it, shoot light from different angles with some refraction, and then maybe it would have a constant flow like water does. And so the computer group gets a hold of this and they're like, let's give it a try. Liquids are insanely hard because of the surface, the reflectiveness of the surface. Everything is constantly in flux. They end up kind of cracking the code on this thing and designing what looks to be at that time an insane like special effect. Like it's hard to, if you're putting yourself in that mindset of 1989, you got to be just sitting there being like, what the shit is this? James Cameron sees this and is like, okay, this is where we get the T-1000 from Terminator 2. The liquid metal one that's able to basically morph and turn into stuff and turn its arms into blades.
Yes.
And it has the scene where it's, getting ready. You think it's separated by the bars, and then it walks straight through the bars and the bars pass through it.
So Cameron used The Abyss to jump into Terminator?
He saw what was possible and he knew he wanted to make Terminator 2. He was trying to figure out, what can I do? I don't know if I want just a robot against a robot. Like, that might be kind of boring, and he must have saw the abyss and be like, what if we could have a robot that's like made of mercury but could move like that?
Yeah, I could see that.
But yep, ILM did all the special effects for Terminator 2. As Steven Spielberg has his next project lined out, he is going to tackle Jurassic Park. And I'm probably going to provide too much information because this is my favorite movie of all time. But this is also when they kind of put the flag down as far as the change, when CG basically took off its shackles, and at that point, everything was possible. So how they were going to originally do Jurassic Park is it was going to be a combination of Stan Winston's animatronics. So I'll give you an example. The scene where the T-Rex gets out. Mm-hmm. Anytime it's close up, that's usually an animatronic, or when a person is in the scene with it where you can tell it's a real person. From a distance, or where it's moving to where you can see its legs and everything, that's going to be a shot that was originally supposed to be stop motion. Now, the stop motion models are amazing. This isn't Gumby or anything like that, or even a Tauntaun from Empire Strikes Back. The way the cameras that they have, the way they're able to work things through digital, this would be really, well done, but it's still moving these animals and creatures a little bit at a time to where, it just doesn't look the same.
The human eye is going to be able to pick up on something. They're not sure what it is. It's just not right.
Exactly. So you have the department with Mark Dippe and Spaz, and they know that this thing's being made, and they're like, let's take a crack at this. Let's see what we can come up with. So Spaz was like, I found a T-Rex skeleton that was the most complete one. I was able to take it in digital images and be able to scan the entire thing and get it into the system. And so I was basically able to then design and articulate a walking T-Rex skeleton. It was just a walking T-Rex skeleton. It didn't say that I could put anything on it to make it look realistic. You could obviously tell that it was just a walking skeleton. It's not a horror movie. We wouldn't be able to use it, for a real T-Rex. But he knew if he had a little bit of backing and more support for him to pursue this, that it was possible for him to maybe pull this off, and this computer department to pull this off. So they, he's like, one of the guys, the Spaz dude, is like, I knew when Kathleen Kennedy, who was, I think, either the president at one of the studios, or she's president of she might still be president of Lucasfilm, or she was formerly. But at that point, she was somebody who was working, I maybe think, for Universal, who was producing and making Jurassic Park.
The name sounds so familiar.
He's like, I know when she was going to come in, I think George was going to be with her. And so I just happened to take the thing that I created with the walking T-Rex, and we have a room that we can go and put stuff up that we're working on, and people can come by and kind of pick it apart, maybe make suggestions about how to make it better. I just happened to have that up there at the time that they were in. They walked in. Kathleen was like, I know we're looking for we know we're doing the stop motion for the dinosaurs and the animatronics, but what's this you guys are working on? That looks pretty good. And they're like, well, yeah, but it's, it's just a skeleton. She's like, but this looks really good. She's like, what? We can still have the stop motion and stuff and still be pursuing that, but let's actually look into this a little bit more. So he gets some money thrown behind him, and basically has now his role is trying to get this thing correct. So he goes through and they're able to scan this stuff. He takes a model that either the Dippet guy had made, Phil Dippet, that was going to do the stop motion, or that Stan Winston had made because they had to match up, and goes through. They said they cut it up into 5 pieces. They were able to put it into like this scanner. The only one was in like Monterey for like a 3D scanner. So they had to go down there and do all that. Lucasfilm didn't have one because, again, this stuff is so rare at this point. And through the process of trial and error, they ended up creating the T-Rex, and it's this maybe 30-second clip, and it's just the T-Rex, and it's walking from a little bit of ways, and it just walks through the scene and then kind of walks off the camera. It doesn't do anything. It just walks. It kind of looks around in another direction. And so they get this little snippet, and they're showing it to the guy that's the head of the department. They're like, this could be it. This could replace that. Like, we're not just saying for this movie, but the fact you're able to design something that mimics a living being when its skin moves a certain way, how it stretches, its movement is fluid. It doesn't have any type of, there's no jerkiness to it. It doesn't have any type of stop start. It looks like you could be looking at, something on Animal Planet.
Yeah.
So they get like George Lucas, I think, and the heads of the department, and they're ready to show this. And they show this like 15-second clip. And I think Phil Tippett was watching it, and he had been kind of button heads with the computer department. He's like, we've been doing stop motion. Like, I have never seen a computer be able to do something this detailed or anything. This is how we've been doing it for a long time. There was probably some competition between them. I think Spaz mentioned, he's like, just because that's the way it was always done, our job was to figure out a better way to do it. And that's what we were going to do. And as they're showing this to Steven Spielberg, it was Steven Spielberg that was there, not George Lucas. They show him this clip, and Spielberg and the rest of his kind of like producers are just like, oh shit. And they're just jaws on the floor. And Tippett is there and sees Spielberg's reaction to this. And Spielberg kind of knows what the connotations of this test footage is, and goes up to him and he's like, I know what this means. We appreciate all the work that you've already done. He done a ton of the movie already too. He's like, we appreciate what you've done, but if this is something that can work for some of the more complex scenes that we want to do, or allows us to do more complex scenes, this is the direction we're going to have to go. And
we have to film a chase scene with a Jeep or with an Explorer. Yep. This is probably going to be better than stop motion. Yeah.
And to have a small Jeep next to it, and you have to like kind of, So he's asking me, he's like, how do you feel right now, man? He's like, I feel extinct. And Spielberg looks at me and goes, I'm going to use that line in the movie. And it is a line in the movie because when Alan Grant and the two paleontologists are walking down to get in the Explorers to go take a look out in the park after they see the video and they've seen the Brachiosaurus and everything. They're walking into Jeff Goldblum is like, what are you feeling right now? And he's like, I think we're out of a job. He's like, I think you mean extinct.
He got writing credit for that, right?
I hope he got something. Here's the cool thing about this, though. Phil Tippett he was the man that had been able to do this in so many different movies, and what allowed him to do it believably, he knew how animals moved. He knew the motion of animals. He knew behavior of animals. So they're like, none of the guys that are programming this on the computer know any of this kind of stuff. Come in and you don't need to know how to do this. Come in and tell them how this thing is supposed to move, and that's going to be your new role.
Yeah.
You're going to come in and you're going to tell us, because you're not going to be doing it physically, how they should be doing it physically. And he ends up coming in and taking like situations where like they're like its stance is too wide. It's running with its feet out like this. It would run more like this. Its head movement would be bobbing. This guy was so good at the stop motion that during one of the scenes it was talking about during Empire Strikes Back, when he's working with the Tauntaun, he's like, every movement that has to go where the leg's right here, that would be a movement where the rider is up out of the saddle because of the momentum. Yeah. So he would raise the rider up a little bit. He's like, but also all the stuff that's tied to the Tauntaun would have that little flip too. So he goes around, he takes a canteen, and he puts it up, he takes a bag and puts it up. And so all these scenes, and when you watch it, it looks like natural movement because the bags are bouncing with it and everything. So this guy understood to the nth degree about how this stuff is supposed to move.
Didn't know dick about how to do it on a computer, but he knew exactly what it had to look like.
To give the computer programmers and the people that were designing this stuff and inputting the movement into the system an idea of how animals moved, they went out and would do animal acting classes. He took them all out. They would act like they were dinosaurs, and they would try to get the idea of movement. So when they went back to their computers, they'd be like, no, that thing hops a little. I think that would hop a little bit more because I was hopping a little bit more when I was doing this. And so they would go out and mimic certain scenes that they were going to do. Like the scene where Alan and the two kids are out in the park after the T-Rex is, totaled the vehicles, and they walk out and they see that herd of the two-legged faster dinosaurs moving along the Gallimimus.
Yeah, it's a pack of them, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And it's just like a flock of birds evading a predator, and the kids they're flocking this way, and they turn around and start running from them.
Yeah.
So they mimicked that scene of doing that with people where they'd jump over the log and see how the movement would look where it'd have to jump up. Well, they did that until one of the guys during one of their sessions, one of their artists, ends up slipping over it and breaking his arm. So then a memo has to be sent out saying, no more pretending you're dinosaurs. Which just reminds me of the scene from Step Brothers where the dad's talking. He's like, it's time to stop being a fucking dinosaur. Never lose your dinosaur.
So as far as the chase scene goes, do you think that they added in the rain and precipitation to maybe draw your eye away from the movement of the T-Rex, or do you think it just tried to enhance it?
You don't have to put your eye away from the movement. The way that they do it, I mean, the scans and skin was a huge thing. You had to have the coloring, the pebbling, the way it changed.
When the T-Rex's head comes down, I'm assuming that was animatronic. When you see the eye look into the side of
yes, that one was.
Yeah.
But then you have to match everything to that and the way that it reflects.
Mm-hmm.
So during that chase scene where that thing comes out of the trees, you also have it blending in. And the guy was talking about how that gave him fits, that scene for the longest time. He's like, I couldn't figure it out. Everyone I showed the movement to, myself included, the movement looked wrong. And I couldn't crack it. And he's like, and then one night I went in there and I was like, 20%. And he's like, I reduced the curvature or something like that by 20%. And I reduced the speed by 20%. And it just clicked and it ran and it looked natural. And he's like, and I knew what it was going to do. So they then take that in with the Jeep that's filming its own scene where it has something that it runs over at the right time, where it looks like the T-Rex's head comes down and smacks the side of it. And I mean, even nowadays looking at it, it's so fucking clean.
How did they mimic the Triceratops shit?
That was probably in the shop.
Okay.
That had to be a shop job. You had the spaz guy was talking. He's like, there's funny little details in that. He's like, I did the chase scene with the T-Rex. He's like, and then I did the scene, and he's like, I think my last scene with it was when he's chasing Malcolm when he lights the flare. And he runs toward the bathroom. Jeff Goldblum gets thrown and the bathroom collapses and the guy's sitting on the shitter. And he's like, when the T-Rex comes down and grabs him, he's like, that's actually the T-1000 model that we use for Terminator 2. And he grabs him because as soon as he grabs him, it's then a computer generated guy. And he's like, I just use the same body model. So that's the T-1000 that's getting thrown around.
Wow. There's also got to be the little physical things, because if they made the blasters for Star Wars, they probably had their hands on the DeLorean design quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
If you even look at the little things like Wayne Knight's Barbasol bottle.
Yeah.
That had to have been something that they had created that was so crazy futuristic at that point in time.
I think that was in Crichton's book. I haven't read it in a while.
Yeah.
I think that might be in his book.
Really?
But then that goes to the design of making it look exactly like he said, up to them.
Huh.
Stuff that wasn't included in there, they have to go in and they have to create all that stuff. So, at this point, because of how Jurassic Park went and how the computer, graphics had advanced at that point, Lucas is like, I think this can now I can start thinking of the story of the prequels that I want to do. I think by the time maybe I have it completely written and worked out, that the technology might be there, or in every instance that I've presented these guys with a problem, they've been able to solve it. I'll just rely on them. It's my company anyway.
Yeah, that helps.
So, ILM starts to look into more consumer tools and everything like that as well. So they're going around to trade shows and they're trying to figure out how some of these consumer programs, like certain photo editing software, sound editing software, could be integrated into parts of what they're doing to try to make their job easier or a little bit faster.
Yeah.
When people design a program, they look at it and they say, it does this really well because this is what we built it to do. We didn't test it out doing anything else because that's not what its intention was. But if you're a creative computer programmer and you're like, hey, I actually saw this computer program do this, I wonder if we adapted that aspect of it or used it through that process or what it would do for this. And they're figuring out these little tips and tricks that are just keep bumping them up the ladder of advancement. Because of that, though, less work, and because of the now prevalent, nature of computer generated imagery and everything, the shop starts to kind of get on its last legs, like the model shop. So it ends up closing over the period of a couple of years, like reducing down, and then ends up closing up shop. They still do have, guys that will build props and sets like that, but they're using them more so for props. They're not using them to design a model to then be shot on camera a whole bunch of times.
It bums me out.
It does. Yeah, it was a bummer when I was watching that part of it.
Wow. But that's just how fast technology changed.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty quick.
Because of the advancements, I think it was George Bush Jr. He actually awarded George Lucas. Yeah.
George Bush Jr.?
GW. He's still George Bush.
I never thought about calling him Junior, though.
Yeah.
Isn't he not a junior, though? Because one of them's Walker and one of them's Herbert Walker?
The middle name isn't what makes it. It's the first name and the last name.
Huh.
You can have different middle names.
Okay.
So tools are in place for episode 1. George is going to start working on that. This is also where as he's kind of developing this, he's like, when he finished the first 3 Star Wars, maybe it was just the New Hope, but they'd asked him, was it what you wanted it to be? He's like, it was like 25% of what I wanted it to be. It was still amazing, but
that hurt.
Yeah. So this is at the time also where he goes back and he does like the special editions of Star Wars.
Yeah.
This is where you get, just little unnecessary scenes that were things that bothered him. Like there's a scene where Luke is driving his speeder through the desert. And how they originally did that scene was they had the speeder, which was on wheels, obviously, and they just hung a mirror down below it and had it really close to the ground. And so the mirror would just reflect the sand that was there and it would look like it was just hovering. Mm-hmm. George wasn't too crazy about that. He thought it was something he was going to fix. So he went in, he created new scenes just to show the thing where it was just hovering exactly the right level and you couldn't tell it was bouncing on wheels. He added Jabba the Hutt in because he'd already made, Jedi at that point.
Yeah.
He knew that he knew that Jabba and Han they'd established history during that movie. He's like, I can go back and I had filmed a scene with Harrison that he was talking to Jabba, but then I didn't really know what he was supposed to look like. I'll just put Jabba in there at that point. He bumped up, he did some X-Wing scenes and everything. They're not like the Lord of the Rings extended edition where it adds like some substantial stuff. It was basically George being like, I got this fucking toy. I'm horny. Episode 1's not ready yet. I just want to start using this stuff on some Star Wars. And all these people having, working for this company, having grown up on Star Wars are just like, yeah, let us work on this. Let us do whatever.
So what do you think of the product then?
I think it's exactly that. He had the new toy. He obviously wasn't satisfied with it, which I'm not a director. I don't know. I realize that when I do creative stuff, I'm not satisfied with the end result all the time. And if I had the tools to go back and redo stuff and that kind of time, yeah, why not? And a team to do it. Yeah, I get it. I just don't think it was I don't think it needed to be done.
Which one would you rather watch?
The original. Yeah, the original,
okay.
yeah. So, this is where, again, episode 1 comes into play. He's going to be looking to create not just a CGI character. CGI characters were a little bit.
Is this a very famous Star Wars character?
Yeah, it is. You could create dinosaurs because there was a believability in the sense that people didn't really know how dinosaurs moved or looked.
Yeah.
You showed us dinosaurs in Jurassic Park. Everyone was like, that is obviously how a fucking dinosaur looked. I mean, it's come to light that those dinosaurs don't look exactly like that. Like some of them are pretty drastically different.
Yeah.
But I love the way those dinosaurs look. Yeah. Creating a human-sized character that exhibits facial features, emotions, movements, that's a much tougher, thing to do. That's much more nuanced. You have to be much more detailed in facial expressions and things like that than you do with like a dinosaur that you're kind of viewing from a distance.
If you're giving him humanistic traits, he's going to have to move like a human that's still a
Correct.
dinosaur.
So yes, this is where we do get Jar Jar Binks. I'm not going to give any Jar Jar hate at this point because after watching this documentary and seeing how much actual hate the guy got, yeah, I don't want to participate in that.
Oh, it was bad.
Oh yeah, it was really bad. Because of the way he talked, they were like, it's a racist character and everything like that because Jar Jar has like dreads and all this kind of stuff. And the guy that did it is black. And he's like, no, he wanted me to do like a silly, goofy voice. And so that's kind of what I was doing.
Huh. I don't know if I ever would have tied the racial connotations to that.
So when they're creating Jar Jar, they were going to do, because obviously his body structure is that of a person. It's just the longer neck and the head that doesn't look like one.
Yeah.
So they had originally planned on being like, what we're going to do is we're just going to do the thing where we put dots on your face because he was wearing basically a Jar Jar hat. Like he had cut off Jar Jar's head and put it on top of his head.
Gotcha.
Ben Stiller with the panda. And he's like, we'll just take out your face and put it, into the neck and everything like that. So the computer group was kind of looking at this and saying, we can go full CG with this thing, I think. Like, we have the ability to make the movements fluid and all that kind of stuff. We were doing this thing called motion capture, where we can just have him do certain movements and they'll be programmed in to do the same movements, and we won't have to just have him, it allows us to be more detailed, and we might actually be able to do it cheaper than having to go into each shot and remove his neck or remove the face from his neck. Turns out there might have been some tomfoolery, but it came out to where it was actually cheaper just to do him all as CG. So that's kind of where you get the first instance. Other than in Terminator 2, it was Robert Patrick as the T-1000, and it was partially, he was only CG when he was like morphing or doing stuff like that.
Quick aside. Mm-hmm. What do you think motion capture has made more money in, video games or movies?
Ooh, fuck.
I got to think video games.
It's such a big business the fact that it was born out of this and then put into video games, I don't care. I love it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But this is also where they start to discover ILM kind of takes the lead on figuring out this motion capture thing. And then all of a sudden it's this game on about we're no longer have those shackles about not being able to do people. They also had to figure out how to do the pod racing scene. Because everything is blurring by so fast and how to blend that in with certain like practical effects. After episode 1 came out, it was a, huge success. Everybody lauded the special effects. They were really well done. They're not the best Star Wars special effects. Like probably episode 3 probably has those, or maybe some of the new stuff like Mandalorian. But movies start to develop certain things that they're doing during these movies where they have to just make like little natural effects that are like background stuff.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, we're not creating a speeder, but speeder has to have exhaust or an explosion that has to have smoke or mist or something like that. Well, this leads into other situations where they're like, well, if we can create mist, we could do like a tornado, right? And so you get ILM doing Twister. I mean, they don't come up with the idea for Twister, but the script is obviously there. It might be one of those things that's sitting on the shelf waiting for the technology to be able. You can't have the fucking movie Twister if you don't have a believable volcano or Jesus Christ, tornado.
Yeah.
2 hours, 11 minutes in. So ILM ends up doing all of the stuff for Twister. They start to tackle not having to go out and film on water if they want to start making movies that encompass a lot of water.
Man, I would not have guessed Twister. I don't know why it wouldn't have come across as something that ILM would have their hands in, but it's they were the people that did stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And there wasn't any other game in town really at this point.
I mean, I'm sure there were other games that were popping up because they saw how lucrative and how much business had to be funneled to this one place.
Or guys that went off from ILM and started their own stuff.
Yeah, exactly. When we're doing kind of their own shit.
But to even get Twister.
Yeah. Wow. But I mean, when you're that far ahead and you have something that's just on the cusp of that new technology being like, can you do this? So like, not right now, but I bet we can figure it out by the time the movie, the special effects need to be put in. We've figured out everything else. They also were able to. Do you remember the movie The Perfect Storm that had Mark Wahlberg and George Clooney about the Gloucesterman, the fisherman that ended up like.
It's been a real long time if I've seen it.
So they did all the CG for that, for the boat, the storm, everything like that. And then that led them into being able to do Pirates of the Caribbean. With Pirates of the Caribbean, they said that the challenge with that is the special effects are not only with the ship. They did a lot of practical effects because they had an actual scaled ship built. In the later movies, they have ship-to-ship battles around like storms that are definitely CG. But in the original, The Black Pearl, you have that transition where the cursed pirates go from their regular forms and then moonlight hits them into the skeletal forms.
Yeah.
So you're having to figure out as a special effects company, how do you go from live action actors, blending those in within the course of a scene into skeletons, but in the same scene, if their hand is outside in the shadow, being the actor's hand again. So they're again, like, you could think of any movie that has legitimate special effects in it. They said even movies that you don't think have special effects, those are the ones where the special effects are the best because you're not expecting
because they're that good that you don't even notice them.
Forrest Gump has a ton of special effects in it.
Yeah, Tom Hanks can't run that fast.
Not just that. I mean, you got he's meeting Kennedy.
Yeah.
You think he's hitting ping pong balls that fast and everything?
Oh, come on. Give him the ping pong balls at least. That couldn't have been them.
No. But what this leads to, this level of innovation, is they're looking at the entire concept of how you make movies where, because they're going digital, they're moving away from film. And they're even starting to need to design their own cameras to be able to shoot the things that they want to be able to shoot the certain way that they want to shoot them. We kind of come to more current day. I can't go without mentioning Revenge of the Sith. That was kind of another step up for special effects because there's so many within that movie as well. But kind of the next leap in technology came when David Filoni and Lucasfilm started looking at TV as well. And so there's this thing called the volume that they created. And you've seen green screen when things are filming on green screen. Mm-hmm. People are just in front of the green screen. If there's certain lighting that has to be there that's going to mimic what the screen is going to be turned into, they have to make sure that that's all in place. I think it was starting on The Mandalorian, but they started using this thing called the volume. And basically, it looks like a almost complete circle of a seamless screen. And it also has, I think, a little bit of the roof is also part of the screen. And you can project any background you want onto it, which allows you to basically change the background as anything is being set up on that stage. It's insanely big. It's not like a person is just walking in. This thing probably has close to, 50 yards. Like if you took a football field, divided it, and just did it half, that much space in the middle of this insanely huge screen to where you can put any type of prop. You can put ships down. And then if you put just the front part of the ship, you get the camera set up on it and you do the rear part of the ship out to the sides on the screen itself. And then as the ship is moving, and if the camera wants to move, there's sensors all around this thing that have tracking on the camera. And as the camera moves, the screen itself will shift to the right perspective to make sure that it looks like it's going around onto the side of something. So if you're sitting front on with a ship and it's got two, engines off the side and you can't see the sides of the engine, if you were to walk around to the side of with the camera, that screen is now going to change perspective where that screen's going to show you the side of the engine as if you're standing right there. So, wow. And this allowed them to basically just not have to work on green screens and be able to film action with something in the background that's giving you the sense of the lighting and things like that.
Yeah, there's just green screen technology is pretty cool. It's pretty incredible, but that's unmatched. I mean, green screen can't hold a candle to that. So the depth of what you can get out of it.
Kind of a reoccurring theme throughout this whole thing when ILM is going through its development is directors will come in that it's their first time working with ILM. Ron Howard has a story. Can't remember which movie it was that he was working on. It might have been Willow, actually. And so he comes in, he's like, So we need the scene where Willow transforms her from a goat to this animal, to this animal, to this animal. I'm assuming you guys are going to have to do stop motion and then just kind of blurring and things like that. Or we'll have to do an animal and then cut off screen. Willow will do something back to a different animal, then back. And the guy's like, no, we can kind of do it on the computer. And Ron Howard is just like, what do you know? Like, what? He's like, look, no. They're like, Ron, come back in like a couple days. He
Go
comes
get
back.
on your dinosaur. Take off.
Ron comes back, looks at it, and they said that there was just this common thing with these first-time directors where they'd come back and just be like, okay, I guess I'll just shut the fuck up about this and I'll go start, doing the rest of the work on my movie. When Jon Favreau was tapped to start the Marvel Cinematic Universe with Iron Man, they go to ILM. And when he was doing the movie, he was like, I want to do as much of Robert Downey in the practical suit because we spent so much fucking money on this thing as possible. But I know it's going to have to be a mixture of the practical suit and this other suit. We'll have sections of the practical suit he'll wear and then just maybe have, CG on the arms and things like that. And he said he's like, I wasn't really confident in it for this because stakes are very high with this. I kind of had seen I knew that CG was still distinguishable between a real life prop or a costume. So he said it finally got to the point where I was sitting there watching a scene that we had filmed, and the scene we had filmed was with the actor or with someone in one of the Iron Man suits. It was the like silver one that he first starts out with. And he's like, I'm watching it and I'm watching for stuff. And he's like, okay, so in these specific instances, I think what we can do is we can CG this. But other than that, it's perfect. We don't have to CG it at all. And he's like, we did a CG one. And he's like, we'll show you the other one. And they showed him side by side. And he's like, and they didn't tell him which one was the real one. And he's like, do you know which one the real one is? He's like, no. He's like, do you want us to keep doing more of it in CG? He's like, yep, I'm just going to shut my mouth going forward. So pretty much all of the Marvel movies have had ILM's touch to it. The first, I think it was 6 Harry Potter movies were all done by ILM. As time has progressed and everything, there have been other production houses that have come about and everything. A lot of them very, very good as well. They don't have the kind of prestige, but one of the big ones that came out was Weta. And Weta was the special effects company that was started by Peter Jackson when he was doing Lord of the Rings. And so now they're doing stuff. They used a lot of kind of the, standing on the shoulders of giants and everything with ILM to be able to create like Gollum and have the movement of the skin and have that be so realistic. I've started having my kid watch Lord of the Rings and he's been like into it, but I did Gollum's voice for him. Like when I was reading a story to him, he fucking hates it. It scares the shit out of him. And so I accidentally built up Gollum to be this scary thing. And so now we're getting to the point of the movie. It's the second one of our first shows it. And he's like, I'm not ready for this yet. And I was like, God damn it. But it is very realistic.
Gollum's a pretty creepy character.
Oh, yeah. Well, hands down. But still, like, I want to be able to progress past the first movie.
Yeah. You want to break them out.
But so you have these other companies that have definitely been inspired by ILM, have taken the things that they've taken, put their own spin on them, have run with it. But the pedigree, and I just kind of want to go through some of the live action films that I didn't get to mention, just in case, anybody is interested in what ILM has done for some of those other things. All the Indiana Jones movies. They also did Labyrinth, which if you're in your 40s, you know what Labyrinth is about. Howard the Duck.
Solid.
The Golden Child. Harry and the Hendersons, buddy.
That's my movie.
That's right.
No way. They did Harry and the Hendersons?
Yeah. They also help with Spaceballs. They help with Mel Brooks' satire on Star Wars. They did The Burbs, Field of Dreams, Ghostbusters 2. They also did Total Recall, Arachnophobia, Backdraft, Hook. I think I already mentioned on that one. Do you remember that movie? Which one was it? Last Action Hero?
Mm-hmm.
They did that one.
Last Action Hero was Roddy Piper, wasn't it?
That was with Arnold Schwarzenegger. That's where he was the movie actor, but then somehow came into the real world.
Okay.
Already talked about Forrest Gump, Flintstones, baby, The Mask, like you had mentioned. They worked with Star Trek a whole bunch because they were that good. Did some of the Mission Impossibles. Most of the Jurassic Parks they actually did. Sleepy Hollow, Green Mile, Galaxy Quest. So, I mean, all the Marvel movies, anything that, like I said, it kind of feels like the NASA of the film industry. Transformers movies, they did all of those.
Well, there's also, they don't just get by on their past. Like, their pedigree doesn't keep them, it sounds like, relevant. It sounds like they are just continuously.
Yeah, and I think eventually, once you hit a certain point of like progress, you start to slow because then you're slowed by the technology at the time. You run into the same thing that director ran into. Mm-hmm. And so that's where it gives opportunity for other companies to catch up, but it also gives other opportunities for companies to come in that have different ideas on how to do stuff. AI is going to be the big thing going forward. I'm sure ILM has their... I know that face. You've used it though.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like to do this topic because I fucking love the Star Wars universe, but this is a company that has such a far-reaching impact for... I don't like the term cinephile because there are certain words that end in file that regardless of what you put in front of them, it doesn't make it sound good.
Like a bibliophile? Is that what you're talking about?
I just like movies.
Okay.
But this is a company that in so many different ways shaped the imagination of so many different people. And different aspects of it have gone out to do different things. Like we just talked about Photoshop. There was editing software that Lucas created that's been used on like other movies and music and things like that.
There's no other company that I could think of in a space like this that's that versatile.
Yeah.
They're in every genre. Mm-hmm. The Harry and the Hendersons thing, obviously, because I'm partial to it, I would have never guessed.
I love the fact that that's the one. When I saw that one, I was like, this is the one he's going to pick.
Well, there's that. I mean, the Jim Carrey mask makes total sense because you have to be able to have that ability to have the transformation of putting on the mask.
They were talking about how big of a pain in the ass it was when he went to go put on the mask, and then when he would take it off, all that green glitter cloud would come off. They're like, designing that stuff is just the craziest shit like you can think of.
Yeah.
But I love the fact that this company was kind of just a weird, and I keep using the term, but an island of misfit toys of people that in any other field are just like, that's a stupid hobby. When are you going to grow up? I'm going to leave it with this last bit. One of the guys, it was the Phil Dippett guy. He was talking, he says, one time when my daughter was like 9 years old, she came and got me and she took me up to her room and she's like, I'm really sad. And he's like, why are you sad? She's like, I know that I'm getting to the age where I'm going to have to stop playing with toys and things like that. And he looked at her and he's like, if you work in the movies and you work in film, you never have to stop playing for the rest of your life. And I think that's kind of the part I like most about it is I feel like that with the stuff that I like, the stuff that I'm into, obviously by some of the episodes that I've done on this podcast, you can tell, but regardless of how old you are, you never have to stop playing.
Yeah. I mean,
play on, player.
We do this podcast surrounded by wrestling masks and action figures and all of those things that...
Definitely not dolls.
No, action figures.
Action figures. Figures of action.
You don't have to lose that. I think that there's always this feeling of needing to grow up and to be more professional in that type of deal. But to know that there's still fields out there where you can just continue to do what you love all the time is so cool.
Yep. All right, everyone. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this deep dive into the magical world of cinema. We'll catch you next week.
Peace.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for joining us for another episode. If you like what you heard, hit that subscribe and like button. Follow us. If you didn't like what you heard, still hit that anyway, because we'll probably cover something in the future that you do like. Please follow us on our social media. Adam, hit him with it.
Our Instagram is historically high pod, historically high pod, and we are on Twitter at historically high. That's historically HI.
All right. And if you guys want to send in any feedback, suggestions, hit us up on those two, or you can even do it on Gmail. It's historicallyhighpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks again.
Peace.